Motability cars.
Instead of the water rapids, you can have a road you go down that's full of potholes in a car with bad suspension and flat tyres. I don't know why they're bothering building a theme park in this country. They're going right, no one will be able to afford to go to it anyway.
How about the Rachel Reeves ride, says Terry in Birmingham. You go round and round and vanish up your own deficit. It's the HS2 ride. It travels at high speed for 10 feet, where everyone gets off and into the replacement bus ride. Tickets are £50 if bought 5 months in advance, or £1,000 on the day.
There's a strong rumour going around that Rachel Reeves is going to have a kissing booth for this theme park. So what I do, mate, I shove a five in a pot and you can go and fill your boots.
Thank you very much indeed. Very generous of you. One from G, who says fast-track entry to every ride for illegals, plus a free night stay in the park's hotel and free food. New theme park bumper cars will have to pay a congestion charge, and the funhouse isn't built yet, despite Angela Rayner's pledge to build houses. What about Ghost Train doesn't move because the driver's on strike? Have a good day. This is brilliant for the theme park. How about grow your own cannabis farm? Yeah, that's a good one. An Ethiopian safari park narrated by Angela Rayner. Says Gary in Durham. How about that? This sums up the Labour Party to me. The one idea they have to improve growth for the economy is to basically have a bloody big fun fair. It's the type of idea primary school children would pitch, given 10 minutes to come up with something. Well, it turns out, Matt, in Royston, that it's not even their idea. And they're now trying to claim it's their idea, even though it was actually the Tories.
They have done brilliantly on breakfast, but you know on Drive you've done brilliantly as well. Downhill slide rides surrounded by ULEZ cameras so that people are fined on exit. Love it. You could have a Birmingham-themed Whack the Rat stall. If you whack the rat, you can have your bin emptied for free. On the Labour theme park, a house of mirrors where they're all boarded up because they can't bear to look themselves in the eye.
I've got a great one for you, mate.
This is for the... is this for the Universal theme park run by Labour?
Moat right around the park.
Yeah.
With loads of dinghies. Call it the channel and say anyone who can break in, all is free.
Imagine a Scouser say you can break into a theme park for free.
Hi, Jeremy. Hey, it's simple. You've got the Labour...
Across the UK. On DAB Plus, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Tory.
Good morning and welcome to Morning Glory. It's coming up to 3 minutes past 6 and it is of course still dark because here we are. It's Wednesday the 10th of September into double digits and things are not getting any better for phase 3 of the new Labour government. Keir Starmer unveiled his new cabinet yesterday and gave what can only be described as the most uninspiring speech of all time. We'll be playing you a little bit of it a little bit later on, of course, because he's setting out his stall. He's now got 6, count them, 6 different people trying to attempt to become deputy leader of the Labour Party. Right? They all appear to be left-wing women, and they've all got something on him, and they've all got reasons to get out to get him. Nobody knows why. Nobody knows why women hate him so much. We can't figure it out. The only one he wants to get in is Bridget Phillipson, the woman who claims to be working class, even though she comes from, you know, a relatively decent background. There's nothing wrong with being working class. There's nothing wrong with not being working class. But she, of course, has to tell everyone that she's working class so that she can inherit the reins of Angela Rayner. Emma Wolf is here with us this morning. Very good morning to you, Emma. Lots of stuff on the front pages, of course, about what happened in Qatar yesterday, whether Donald Trump approved of it or didn't approve of it. But we'll talk about that a bit later on, because on the front pages also is a picture of Peter Mandelson in a bathrobe. And I have to say, one of the most grisly, ghastly and sort of unedifying pictures you will never see. Why in God's name did our bathrobe clan ambassadors of Washington fawn over a wicked paedophile who called him Petey? Asked Stephen Glover in the Daily Mail, because he's, of course, sitting on the private island of one Jeffrey Epstein in 2002. And Mandelson on the rack over best pal Epstein, according to the front page there. He's wearing a fluffy white dressing gown as he sent photos of himself topless to Mr. Jeffrey Epstein. Very, very strange behaviour. Also, front page of The Sun, they've got their own exclusive, and it's about Greg Wallace from MasterChef. Apparently he's going to sue the BBC. Not least because he says he suffers from a disability. They've got pages 4 and 5 on it as well. He'll launch a disability claim over his autism, and his legal fight is a disaster, it says, for telly chiefs. BBC's kitchen nightmare. Absolutely incredible. Front page of The Times goes with, "We must live within our means." Funniest statement ever from Rachel Reeves, who is, of course, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, who doesn't live within her means, who's currently borrowing around about 20 billion plus every single month. Absolutely extraordinary stuff. The front page of the Telegraph has got the same picture of Mandelson in his bathrobe, saying that he had an Epstein £1 billion deal. Apparently, Jeffrey Epstein brokered a deal with Lord Mandelson over the sale of a UK taxpayer-owned banking business after he had been convicted of child sex offences. We'll hear exclusively from Peter Mandelson this morning. We'll let you know how that's going to happen. Also, interestingly enough, on the Times, a rising tide of voters warn of climate scepticism. That means that an awful lot more people have been listening to this show and understanding actually climate change is a crock of nonsense. And the more money they ask you for, the less likely it is to be changed. 1 in 4 voters now believe that concerns about climate change are not as justified as science has said and as scientists have said. And also, back on the migrant front, of course, we got the first boat arrived yesterday, which was undocumented, i.e. not one that was brought in by Border Force, not one that was brought in by the RNLI, one that just landed on a shore of our southeast coast, and people just got out of it and wandered up to the beach. Meanwhile, Channel migrants are in line for millions of pounds in compensation from the Home Office for being unlawfully detained in inhumane conditions. 200 asylum seekers have lodged legal claims, believe it or not, for unlawful detention and mistreatment at the Mandelson Migrant Centre near Dover. Isn't that nice? They don't like it, being rescued from war and torture and attrition and all kinds of horrible things, and they don't want to be put anywhere but a nice hotel. That's nice, isn't it? Emma, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
So a lot going on this morning. The tube strike continues. I know you'll be all right on your bike, but I mean, an awful lot of people I've seen walking to work and walking home. Can't get on buses, you know, can't get on any kind of transport.
And it's even more serious than that. You know, I have been cycling all over London and feeling quite uncharacteristically smug. But A, the traffic is gridlocked.
Yeah.
It really is gridlocked. Secondly, you see really worrying scenes like ambulances caught in traffic.
Yeah.
I was on the Euston Road, which was basically bumper to bumper, and I was sort of weaving my way through on a bike, fair enough, but it's, I mean, hundreds of people...
But not everybody can do that, can they?
Not everyone can do that. Hundreds of people at bus stops, waiting and waiting at bus stops. And then literally ambulances coming out of one of our biggest hospitals, UCLH, unable to get through the traffic. Because it gets to a point with traffic where even an ambulance with all its sirens on, who is probably trying to get to someone in an emergency. So, I mean, this tube strike is having a real impact, and when we hear the demands of some of these, you know, TfL workers, it really beggars belief, doesn't it?
Well, yesterday they came out and said they now want half-price admission to, you know, theme parks like Legoland.
Thorpe Park and Legoland, exactly. And what's all that about? And they're in their what, 70,000 plus cushy jobs with very decent terms and conditions, while the bus drivers, you look at what the bus drivers are doing out there, and you talk to cabbies as well, they can't get on, they can't do, you know, Uber drivers can do a few jobs as opposed to doing a full day's work.
Because I spoke to a black cab driver yesterday, because I took one home, because it's the only way I can get home, really. And he was like, the thing is, we don't really make a lot of extra money because we can't go very far, because there's so much traffic.
They want to be doing lots of jobs in a day, and they can't when they're stuck in traffic.
Exactly. The one person who was also stuck in traffic yesterday was Prince Harry, because apparently now he doesn't get a fast motorcade like his brother. He had to sit in traffic. He was late for one of his appointments.
He was going up to Nottingham, wasn't he, to hang out with young people and talk about, you know, youth and stuff like that, and give them £1.1 million, I think.
Of his own money?
Of his own money. It's my own money.
Also, he's posing with a lot of people in a very dangerous place, i.e. the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, which is so dangerous he can't bring his family here, and he's just posing around with people he doesn't even know.
I don't buy this danger thing.
No.
I don't buy this. The photos of Prince Harry, do you remember last year when he was over here? And he was on someone's Ringer doorbell. And he was lurching around Chelsea.
Running around looking for someone,
dodgy as
Nobody
anything,
knows.
one morning, you know, in his sort of night before smart suit, looking for someone, looking for the party, looking for something or someone. So I do not buy this thing about his security is at an absolute, you know, is an absolute crisis.
Absolutely
he
incredible
does what
stuff.
he wants to do.
Isn't that crazy? Let's have a look at what some of the people have been saying over the last 24 hours or so since we were last here. Wes Streeting, yesterday, Secretary of State for Health. Yesterday, of course, he had the bad news that his league table's been published, and 4 out of 5 hospitals are failing Britain, basically. Keir Starmer, of course, put out a tweet. Keir Starmer put out a tweet saying that he's going to take the best of the NHS and make it and fix the worst of it. Well, unfortunately, there's a lot worse than there is best, so we'll see. But here he is talking about Peter Mandelson's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein.
I think our ambassador has been very clear that he deeply regrets ever having been introduced to Epstein And given what we now know about his horrific crimes, I mean, who would want to be associated with that sexual predator and paedophile? I don't think we should tar everyone with the same brush and do guilt by association.
But Lord Mandelson called him my best pal in this letter. I mean, that suggests their relationship was a lot closer than what we thought.
Well, I think the ambassador has been very clear that he wishes that he had never been introduced to Jeffrey Epstein, and given everything that he did and the horrific crimes that we now know about, from being a sexual predator right through to accusations of being a paedophile. I mean, who would want to be associated with Epstein?
Yeah, who would want to be associated with Epstein after he'd been known to be a paedophile? Well, apparently Peter Mandelson
and was on trial for sex trafficking.
Well, according to the piece in the Telegraph, right, the £1 billion deal that we referred to was made only months after Epstein had been released from prison, right? Semperate Commodities, a joint venture between the taxpayer-owned Royal Bank of Scotland and Semperate Energy, was sold to JP Morgan in a deal on which Epstein gave advice to both Lord Mandelson and to somebody called Jess Staley, a senior executive with JP Morgan, who has since been banned from the city over his relationship with Epstein.
And it's not guilt by association. No. This isn't, oh, he regrets being introduced to him. It's not like you being introduced to someone at a party. No. This is hanging out on this Caribbean island, which was dubbed Pedo Island, Orgy Island, whatever. This is not just hanging out. This is calling him my best pal, and this is holidaying with him.
This is it.
Spending a lot of time with him, and the photos.
The picture of him wearing, sitting there wearing a dressing gown. Now, you're only sitting wearing a dressing gown sort of in a public space, if you like, if you're in like a spa, or you've just had a massage, or, you're in a very comfortable position, shall we say, in somebody's house.
It's very much not a private space, a public space. It's very much like, you come out of your villa and you're chatting to your mate after a shower or after a swim or whatever. It's very, very
intimate. Or you just come out of the swimming pool or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
But it says here, Lord Mandelson's ties to Epstein have come under scrutiny after he described the financier as his best pal.
He wrote it.
In a 10-page letter that was made public on Monday night. The Telegraph established that two men remained friends for almost 2 decades, and even after Epstein was jailed for a child sex offence in 2008. So, I mean, it's bang to rights here. It's not a question of, I didn't realise that he was a sex offender. Yes, you did. Yes. I didn't know that he had been involved with child sex crimes. Yes, you did. And at the time, it turns out that Lord Mandelson was business secretary in the British government.
And a Labour MP. Yeah,
and a Labour MP.
And now he's a UK ambassador to Washington. Yeah. And we have the Trump state visit next week. I just think Starmer's, I'll leave it to... You're talking to Mandelson, I'll leave it to him to explain all this.
Starmer, of course.
Starmer's in a sticky position again.
Well, of course he is, because as usual, Starmer hasn't got the courage or the cojones to do the right thing, because if he starts having a go at Mandelson and bringing him down, Mandelson's probably got stuff on him, because that's the kind of guy he is, and then Donald Trump will say, I don't want you to go anywhere near this Epstein story, because he's got his own reasons not to want to. But let's have a look what Mandelson said on Sky News when he was asked about it a little while ago.
In June 2009, did you stay at the apartment in Manhattan of Jeffrey Epstein?
I'm not answering any questions about him.
He was in jail at the time for soliciting prostitution from a minor.
And my knowledge of him is something that I regret. I wish I'd never met him in the first place.
Why did you have an association with him? Because he was in jail at the time.
Why did many people meet him? He was a prolific networker, and I wish I'd never met him in the first place.
A prolific networker is one way to describe it.
I thought he was going to say prolific sex offender.
Sex offender, I think, is the words he was looking for. But you see, the trouble is, again, Mandelson, he throws the guy under the bus immediately because he thinks, oh, crikey, this could go somewhere bad. He can't get away from this one, I'm afraid. Mandelson, throughout his career, has had terrible judgment. Yeah. He had to resign from government twice, usually over financial misconduct. And the trouble is that people like him love hanging around with rich people. Yeah. Doesn't care that the bloke's a convicted paedophile. He's got loads of money. He's got a private jet and he's got a private island. Absolutely. And I'm just going to hang with him.
And I'm just going to go on holiday and hang out on his island, on his private island. Yeah. And the problem is, it's the dates, Mike. It's the details that are going to come out.
Yes.
Because it wasn't just...
Well, the Telegraph
these birthday photos and the hanging out in the bathrobe and stuff and writing on the snaps, my best pal and all of that. That's kind of 2002. But then later on, the dates just don't add up. No. The minute he knew that there were serious allegations. And then he was in jail and then continued this association.
Exactly. And the moment that was being described there to Mandelson when he stayed in his flat, he said, it says here, a few months earlier in 2010, while Epstein was in prison for solicitation of a minor, Lord Mandelson, who at the time was business secretary and effectively deputy prime minister, stayed in Epstein's New York mansion.
As you say. Big,
Did you not think of
big houses to stay in, rich
Jeffrey?
people to hang out with, people to cook your breakfast, as we see in some of the photos, hanging out with Ghislaine Maxwell in her bikini.
Yes.
The whole thing stinks.
And of course, you know, you might think that if you went to somebody's house in Manhattan, a townhouse worth millions and millions of pounds, and you might not wonder where the owner of the house is. Because you could have asked the question, and they would have been told he's in prison for solicitation of a minor.
Something or other, yeah. And he makes a joke in one of the photos. He's little notes to this on this kind of birthday book, and he makes a joke about, you know, the host is never here, but there's some very interesting friends to hang out with.
Yeah, what does he mean by that? Very strange.
But it was all very funny.
Yum.
Yum about one of the houses. It's all very funny at the time, and now he's absolutely squirming.
And the picture on the front of the Telegraph has got him absolutely laughing. He's not having a serious conversation with Jeffrey Epstein.
I think you really need to reform your ways. It's not that kind of conversation, is it?
It really isn't. Meanwhile, let's have a look at something else that went on yesterday. The first cabinet meeting of the new Keir Starmer cabinet,
It's just too painful.
This is brilliant. It's so cringe-makingly bad, right? This is the first time they've been together since they were all reappointed to different jobs last Friday. Check this out.
Well, good morning, colleagues. Let me welcome you to this cabinet team and to the next stage of our journey as we move from the stage of fixing foundations now on to the stage of national renewal. And you are all here around this table, each and every one of you, because you're the right people for this stage of our journey. The right people, therefore, to focus on our priorities, which are economic growth and national renewal, and the right people to heed the patriotic call to lift up our country and take it forward to national renewal for millions of working people. And that focus on economic growth and national renewal is not one department or some departments, it's every department, it's everybody around this table. That is the priority of the government, because our mission is to deliver for working people.
What's he talking about? Doesn't make any sense at all. He's finished with fixing the foundations, apparently. He's now moving on to national renewal. What does that even mean?
He doesn't even know what he's talking about.
He doesn't even know how to renew a library book, this bloke. You know.
You've got the rocket power to lift off this country. He doesn't. He's so tense as well. Look at his hands. He's like really doesn't know what to say next.
David Lammy's sitting there like a stuffed dummy.
And then nods once in a while. I love that they film this stuff. I just think it's so painful and cringe to watch.
It is. Here he is having a go at reform because he can't get reform out of his head. He goes to bed thinking about Nigel Farage. He wakes up thinking about Nigel Farage. He dreams about reform. Have a look.
This is, above all else, a team effort. We are the government. We are obviously representing different departments around the table, as you must and you will, but you're not just representing one department. You are representing the government, and this is something that for all of us, the public in the end, they don't judge one department, they judge the government as a whole, and that is why we must always work as one team. I think it's important that we are very clear about who we're up against. We're up against those that feed off the politics of grievance, those that do not want problems to be fixed because if the problems are fixed, their reason to exist, their politics, ceases to have any hold in our society. And that is why they talk down our country, because they do not want to fix it for working people. They want the politics of grievance. Ours is a mission for what I consider to be the true Britain, the Britain of decent, reasonable, compassionate, tolerant people. The vast majority of people in this country are, and it's them that we have in our mind's eye as we go forward. And our mission is the.
It's them that we have in our mind's eye. What's he talking about? What on earth is he talking about? People who wish to seek to divide us and all this. And,
the politics of grievance? The fact that Reform are pointing out that this country's in a terrible, terrible state.
Yes.
They don't want it to remain in a terrible state. They want to try and fix it.
They do. First small boat in 3 years lands unchallenged on a British beach. This is something I've been talking about for a long time. It's at page 2 of the Mail.
Yes.
Labour have been accused of overseeing a full-blown borders crisis after an unescorted migrant boat reached British shores for the first time in nearly 3 years. It landed somewhere off the coast of Kent in a small beach, I think quite close to Rye. And I've been saying this for years, that, you know, because I know people that live down there,
Yep.
and these boats arrive all the time.
Yep.
The fact that they're saying it's the first time in 3 years, I can't speak for that, but certainly it was happening many times back in 2022, 23, around then, because it's such a flat space of beach and it goes for miles and miles and miles, and if Border Force don't pick these people up and they get to the beaches on their own, they literally just jump out of the boat and run into the town.
Also, Mike, I would very much doubt this is the first one in 3 years.
I would doubt that
because
as well.
there will be arrivals at night. There will be, as you say, if you're able to land easily and you just scarper.
Yeah.
I don't know what they do with the boat.
Because you can
but
land,
anyway.
well, they just leave the boat there. It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, and it's not a rocky terrain.
Exactly.
It's flat shingle beach or sand.
Yeah.
And you can just land the boat and get out.
Well, I think, you know, we're going to see more of this, aren't we?
Yeah.
And then we really are. I mean, our borders are out of control anyway. We know
Yeah.
that. And as for what Shabana Mahmood has been saying, she seems to be having a bit of
She's just as useless as all the rest of them.
Extremely confused about the rules
Yeah.
and about the regulations and about international... saying this stuff about visas. She's going to challenge people and get rid of it. It's just absolute nonsense.
Well, the first thing she did yesterday, which was her first, Monday rather, was her first day at work, was to say she was going to have some meetings about how best to stop the boats. And you're going, well, you've been in for 14 months. On Saturday, they had the biggest number coming over for several months, I believe, 1,097. Another 500 came yesterday. So we're really ratcheting up to record numbers of just even... I think people... I saw one statistic today that says the number of migrants arriving since she became Home Secretary is up by 5 times more than it was. So brilliant. Here she is tweeting out something on the state of our illegal scenario. Here's what it says.
I was appointed Home Secretary with one clear priority: tackling illegal migration. The government has already laid the foundations. We have lifted removals to 35,000 people and struck a historic agreement with France. But the challenge that we face is considerable and we must go further. That's why I have hosted our Five Eyes allies: America, Australia, Canada and New Zealand. We have discussed the shared challenges that we face from enemies who have no respect for our borders, and we have agreed coordinated action to enforce security and protect our citizens, including tougher sanctions on countries who refuse to take back their own citizens who are living here unlawfully. I know that the British public expects us to bring order and control back to our immigration system, and as Home Secretary, I will do whatever it takes to secure our borders.
Sounds a bit like Destiny's Child number, doesn't it? You get Beyonce coming out at the end of it. She's talking about enemies now. Enemies. And why is she talking to Australia and New Zealand and America and Canada?
In what way is that going to...
Nobody's coming from there.
In what way is that going to stop the illegal migration?
It's not.
And also, is she claiming that she had that Five Eyes summit yesterday? Or the day before, and
I don't know.
And they put together that little documentary, which you and I both know would take a day to shoot.
She's also claiming
absolute nonsense.
They got rid of 35,000 people, which was the figure they had last November, which hasn't changed. And most of those people, apart from 2,200, were voluntarily removed because they wanted to go home.
And it's the same guys as well with their blue plastic bags again.
Plastic bag guys,
I mean, they're going to be asking for repeat fees,
the Blue
aren't
Man
they?
Group. You might as well have them doing it. You know, unbelievable
this is
stuff.
absolute nonsense. And as for, sorry, Mike, but as for this historic deal with France,
the
historic deal that literally has deported nobody, the one in, one out.
Yeah.
Is that the historic
deal? And the
deal?
one that's also caused the collapse of the French government.
Yeah, fourth Prime Minister in a year.
Government has now collapsed completely and utterly. Anyway, listen, Emma Wolf is here. As you can see, we're still just pretty much in the same chaotic state that we were in last week before the last cabinet reshuffle, which I guess was phase 2, I think. I'm not sure whether we're now at phase 3. 53,407, there's a migrant tracker for you, have come into this country. And I'm going to tell you when we come back about something that will really wind you up, and that is that some migrants now, 200 of them, have decided to take legal action against us, the taxpayers, because what they want is compensation for being unlawfully detained in inhumane conditions in the Mandelson Migrant Centre in Dover, where they, of course, get processed before they get sent to an asylum hotel. Unbelievable stuff, isn't it? 24 minutes past 6, back after this.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, coming up to 28 minutes past 6. Amber Wolf is here with us. We're here, of course, until 10 o'clock. It's Morning Glory. The podcast is out after that as well. One thing that Shabana Mahmood has done since she's been in power, guess what? And this was revealed by Guido yesterday. She's setting out a stall to hire a net zero officer for the Home Office for 48,000 quid. Guido's worked out that for that money you can actually hire a border control officer or perhaps buy 150 ultra covert body armour pieces to wear for police officers or purchase 68 tasers. But instead she's got a net zero officer.
Yeah, but remember, Mike, we have to live within our means.
Oh, yes.
That's what the Chancellor tells us.
Yes, let's
we
talk
all
about
have to
that.
live within our means, but they don't.
They don't.
So
how do you get a Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, who's borrowing the equivalent of 20 billion a month, right? Which means that the £50 billion black hole now, by the time she does her budget, will be closer to 100 million, right? She's told cabinet ministers that their departments must live within their means. Rising borrowing costs are putting mounting pressure on the public finances.
Yeah, and there's
really?
There's always money when they need it, and I won't get started on foreign aid and all of that, but there are always billions when they need it.
Yes.
But not for British people, of course.
Oh, of course not. No,
not for our education system or
you've got plenty of money for the migrants.
Or anything like
and how about
that.
this,
No,
right? The chief of the Confederation of British Industry, also not somebody who's on our side. This is somebody called Rain Newton-Smith. Says the time for tinkering is over, and the Chancellor should tear up Labour's manifesto pledge not to raise taxes on working people. I.e., the CBI says put taxes up.
Exactly.
What's wrong with them?
Break your pledges. It's fine for us. We don't care. Raise taxes on working people.
Yeah.
Absolutely outrageous. It's going to be a very,
isn't it?
very painful few months. It's going to be a very painful budget for a lot of people.
Yeah. Business leaders are concerned about the prospect of more tax increases. Lord Rose of Monudon, he's a former chairman of Marks and Spencer's and Asda, said that Britain is on the edge of a crisis and has called for radical action to spur economic growth. Trouble is, none of these Labourites know how to create economic growth because they don't understand it.
Well, this is Stuart Rose, right?
Yeah.
This is Stuart Rose, who actually, whatever you think of him, ran M&S and I think Asda as well, successfully for quite a few decades.
Yeah.
I think he knows a little bit more about how to make money and save it and how to run a business
than Rachel
Reeves does. Yeah.
Rachel from Accounts.
Are we still allowed to call her that?
Oh, I call her
We'll
that.
get sued.
Yeah, well, why? That's
I
what
called
she
her
is.
Rachel Thieves the other day, and I was told that it wasn't allowed on air.
Oh, really? Well, that depends where you're on air. It's allowed here. How about MasterChef? Let's have a look at that. Front page of The Sun. Greg Wallace is suing the BBC over his sacking from MasterChef. The furious former host has lodged a lawsuit at the High Court saying, I will not go quietly.
You know that thing about when you're in a hole, stop digging?
Yeah.
I don't think there's a lot of public sympathy
Not
or
really.
love for Greg Wallace.
No.
He's shown himself to be quite strange.
Yeah.
As you say, it's based on, he wants all these documents released. God, it's more exciting than Epstein.
Yep.
He wants all these documents released. People are saying things could go nuclear. He's lodging a disability claim over his autism.
Yeah.
The autism which suddenly popped up, and he said they should have known about it, and that would have stopped him, I don't know, running around studios, allegedly.
Taking his clothes off.
Yeah,
and
harassing...
putting strange things on strange bits of him.
Yeah, absolutely. That would have stopped it all. If only they'd known.
Yeah, here we go. In a statement issued after his dismissal, Wallace said, my neurodiversity, now formally diagnosed as autism, was suspected and discussed by colleagues across countless seasons of MasterChef, yet nothing was done to investigate my disability or protect me from what I now realise was a dangerous environment for over 20 years.
Wait,
do me
wait,
a favour.
So I was neurodivergent.
Excuse me, was he not paid to do this job?
Yeah.
Did he do it for nothing?
I'm neurodivergent, and this was suspected by people who said I was weird, and they didn't tell me, and it was a dangerous environment for me. I mean, are we literally in a new age where there is no personal responsibility for your behaviour?
Yeah.
And it's interesting, though, the BBC reaction, because Tim Davies kind of come out and he's trying to sort of, he says, I'm rushing towards it, I'm going to meet it head on, you know, I'm going to investigate all wrongdoing, and he's kind of preempting what I think is going to be an almighty storm.
Yeah, well, he was in front of a parliamentary committee yesterday.
Yeah.
He says, I'm not mucking around, I'm going to, in his bid to clear out sexual harassers, he says, we may see more things coming out because in some ways I'm asking for it and running towards the problem. Well, except for the fact that Greg Wallace has apparently asked for permission to see all these documents.
Yeah.
So if all these documents exist about whatever it is that he wants to see, how has Tim Davie not seen them? You know?
Well,
and why did he not know?
Amazing that he's clung onto his job through all of this. Really is.
Absolutely incredible. I think we got a clip of him actually from yesterday in front of the committee. Have a look.
Are you able to assure us today, are you able to give us your categorical assurance that whenever we next have you in front of us, there won't be a scandal of BBC talent abusing their position, which you need to apologise for?
We are seeing people call it out, and that is a positive change, but it's ongoing work. I don't think you can change culture in 6 months and suddenly say nothing's going to occur. We may see more things coming out, because in some ways I'm asking for it and being utterly transparent and running towards the problem. That's what we need to do.
That's what we need to do. I mean, how many more of these hearings do the BBC have to appear in front of before they actually do anything? Because they don't seem to do anything. They just keep saying they're going to do something.
Amazing that he's still there.
And it's Samir Shah, who's the chair now of the BBC. He came out yesterday and said we've got to cater for reform voters, suggesting that they don't at the moment. Why do they have to cater for specific voters?
Where's the balance?
What does that mean?
Where's the impartiality?
Why haven't they just cater for the people of Britain?
Yeah.
Why do they have to cater especially to reform
and report
voters?
The news.
I know. It's weird, isn't it?
Very odd.
Very strange. Let's see, what else have we got? Rachel Reeves responding to questions on the IMF bailout. Have a look.
The country would have heard what the leader of the opposition said today, talking down our economy in a desperate attempt to get attention. The truth is that the benches opposite know that it is not serious and it is irresponsible. The only thing in Britain that needs a bailout is the Tory party from its failed leadership.
Just off one.
Yeah, that'll come back and haunt her, won't it? The only thing that needs a bailout is the Tory party. Well, when she has to go and get the bailout, we'll play that again.
Absolutely.
It'll be in about a month's time, probably.
Exactly.
Unbelievable. Absolutely incredible stuff. Meanwhile, Starmer's in more trouble from the left-leaning ladies, isn't he? There's a big spread in the Daily Mail saying that
sick of this. Why do they have to be women? Why do they have to be working class? Can't they just be decent, like, politicians?
So we've got Alison McGovern, the housing minister.
Yeah.
Don't know much about her. Belle Ribeiro Addy, hard left candidate who calls for slavery reparations.
Yeah.
Lucy Powell, who got sacked in the cabinet reshuffle last week. Stella Creasy, who says she's independently minded. She's the one that wants to breastfeed her child in a chamber, isn't she?
She's basically as painful as Angela Rayner. Stella Creasy is one of them.
Bridget Phillipson, uber-ambitious education secretary, looks set to be Keir Starmer's preferred candidate. Paula Barker, I don't know her.
Don't know her.
A welfare rebel. And Emily Thornberry. Lady Newgie.
Who would be the funny...
Champagne socialist.
Hilarious
She would be great fun.
It would be really funny. She's just a nightmare.
Well, they all are, really.
They really are. Belle Ribeiro Addy won't stop going on about this really unfair contest which I'm running in.
Right.
She keeps tweeting on about this terribly undemocratic three-day contest. Because it's only 3 days that they have to get all their nominations, and it's terribly unfair, but I'm running anyway.
OK.
So she's obsessed with that.
Right.
Bridget Phillipson has the kind of metalhead bob, doesn't she? The Lego bob.
Yes.
A bit like Rachel Reeves.
It's like Rachel Reeves, yeah,
but even more so. And actually, let's talk about what Bridget Phillipson has done. She basically destroyed, you know, the education system, gone to war, class war on people who save up a bit of money to try and send their kids to private school. She's got children being bussed all over the country. She's closed down some private schools.
Loads of private schools are closed down.
Basically, children have lost their friendships, their continuity. What she's done, actually, in schooling is really appalling over the last year.
And what she's caused is a massive run on state schools. So more of these kids have been, I think 13,000 have come out of the private system and are now
into a system which is already under so much pressure.
And they haven't hired any extra teachers either, which they promised to do. And they haven't actually made any money because the extra VAT they've collected has been minimal, you know. Absolutely ridiculous. Pete in Swansea says this: know a man by the company he keeps. He used to be known as twice disgraced Peter Mandelson. He's now 3 times disgraced Peter Mandelson. And Gaynor in Nottinghamshire says, great show, Mike. How dare the illegal migrants take us to court to get money off us? Our country is in an emergency crisis, and I think it's time we started claiming foreign aid from somebody. Or maybe so. Why don't we start fining these countries that keep letting these people come and visit us from overseas?
If we had any cojones, we would be taking... But can we talk about that one? Because we didn't actually talk about the migrants who are basically trying to sue the Home Office. They want compo, don't they?
They do.
For things like, they claim at Mandelson Migrant Centre, where they were being processed, they claim sexual assaults, physical abuse, disease-ridden conditions.
Yeah, they all got diphtheria, didn't they?
Dirty and cold.
Any chance they brought the disease with them?
I wonder.
You know.
It was dirty and cold. It wasn't quite warm enough for them.
Oh, dear.
And there were thefts from guards. So they want compensation now.
Right. And what sort
as
of
well
lawyer,
as accommodation.
But
and
what sort of lawyer would represent somebody like that in this country? Because I said this yesterday on Jeremy Carl's show, you know, we should go after these lawyers because they are emptying the public purse of money to give to illegal migrants who are technically criminals because they didn't like the way they were treated when they were fleeing war and torture and supposed, you know, persecution. Well, I'm sorry, if you're fleeing war and torture and persecution, as long as you're not getting that wherever you are, you should be happy, shouldn't you?
There are many, many lawyers, aren't there, who are making a lot of money out of this racket.
I know. It is a racket.
Out of the human rights appeal thing.
Absolutely right. Listening to Starmer shows what an arrogant idiot he really is, says Paul from Murcia. And another Paul in Staffordshire says, what a load of BS word salad from two-tier Keir, the most useless Prime Minister ever.
And what was really worrying about that cabinet meeting, he was talking to them as though it was the first day of school and he was introducing them, or even first day of government. But it was pretty pathetic. It was sort of 7-year-old stuff. This is what we do, and you all have your own department, but we're all responsible for the whole success of the government. This is really embarrassing for a man who's been in power now for a year and a half. He's fighting off crisis after crisis. What is he on phase 3 now? Is it this week is phase 3?
He hasn't mentioned it's phase 3, but I think he's kind of trying to make everyone forget that phase 2 didn't go that well.
But how long did phase 2 last? It was last
4
week.
days.
Was it renewal?
It was 4 days.
What was it? What was phase 2?
Well, phase 2, I don't know what it was, but it was when Angela Rayner resigned as Deputy Prime Minister.
Suddenly we were into phase 2. Maybe it was the post-Rayner, post-modern era.
Yeah, could be. Absolutely incredible
With
stuff.
a bunch of
now, here's
crowds.
one. I didn't spot this. We might have to have a second look because, according to Darryl in Blackburn, he says, "Morning, Mike and Emma. I can't believe the narcissist Starmer actually has Sir Keir Starmer written on his cup in that cabinet meeting clip. Can we? Is there any chance we can like hone in on that? Apparently, it says Sir Keir Starmer on it. Who has a cup with her name on it?
Colleagues.
Ludicrous.
Let me welcome you to...
I mean, even your child.
Not even my 5-year-old has that.
No. I mean, I don't think I've ever had a cup with my name on it.
Never. Maybe one with Mum.
Is it that? Yeah, it does. Apparently it's true. Christian, we can confirm that Keir Starmer's got a cup with his name on it.
Well,
Has he also got his name sewed into the back of his jacket? You know, in case he loses it at school. And his underpants.
Oh, my goodness.
Hey, do you think he's got
Darryl, you have very good eyesight.
Well
but
done,
that
Darryl.
is absolutely pathetic.
Spot
it's
of
also,
the morning,
Mike,
that.
it's the kind of thing, if you have Mum or Dad written on a mug, it's the mug that you put right to the back of the cupboard.
Yeah.
The idea of having one with your
takes
name on it.
It takes some work.
Yeah.
And go, here's my mug.
That is pathetic.
Can you make sure you make my tea in my mug, please?
In my mug. Put it in my mug.
Yeah. Has David Lammy got his name on it as well?
Oh, my God.
Do you think? Maybe they've all got their mugs with their names on. Yeah, very nice. Have you got some
that's
plates?
so nice.
Maybe he's got a plate and a knife and fork as well. He takes it to work. and he has his little sandwich. He takes it out his lunchbox with
The
his name on
Victoria
it.
makes? I don't think
his
so.
name on it. His name's sewn into all of his clothes.
Just to remind him who he is.
Dear God.
Hello, welcome to the job. You get your mug with your name on.
Oh. That's incredible.
Foreign
That is
Secretary.
really incredible. Listen, coming up, we're going to tell you. Do you remember that time he hugged Volodymyr Zelensky? We're going to time it, right? And I'm going to tell you why in a minute. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 6:42. Emma Wolf is here with us. Mike, is Starmer the most cringeworthy person ever? I wonder if you'll start handing out colouring books and crayons, says Andy from Sheffield. Starmer talks absolute dribble. Keep calling the wrong ones out. Yeah, absolutely ridiculous. Now,
you know what they do need?
Go on.
They need peg. A peg with your name on it. That's the big thing about primary schools. You find your peg with your name above it.
Find your peg. Don't use anybody else's peg.
That's what Starmer needs.
You don't use the wrong peg. That would be wrong, wouldn't it? The pegging scenario. Now, you might remember the love-in between Volodymyr Zelensky and Keir Starmer. Whenever they see each other, they have this big hug right now. The reason why I'm asking this question, I don't know if we've got have you got the video? Let's play the video. Let's try and count the number of seconds that Starmer and Zelensky hug for. Have a look. This is when he last came to Downing Street. 3.5. Was only 3.5. The reason I asked that question is, according to a piece of the Daily Mail, a hug between friends becomes a lover's embrace when it lasts 7.02 seconds. And it hasn't lasted 7.02 seconds, so there's proof that they're not
anything
involved.
over,
they're just friends.
But anything over 2.88 seconds is a bit meaningful, is a bit more
so they
intimate.
got to 3, didn't they?
Well, I think if you added up all their close...
3. That one's more than 3.
If you add up all their close body contact, it would be probably minutes.
Here's with Macron. 1, 2, 2 and a bit, 3, still there, 4, 5, 6. Oh, could be 7 there. That could be 7.
Yeah.
Let's see, it's Macron. It's him. There we are.
You're in, mate. He's in.
This is great. And we just keep playing this all the way through the show. So anyway, according to this study, it says here, the next time you want to... Professor Sebastian Ocklenberg of Medical School in Hamburg, Germany, less than 3 seconds, you're clearly in the friend zone. 7 seconds or more, they may have more feelings for you than you might have thought.
Yeah, the next time you want to know if someone likes you as a friend or maybe a little bit more, pay attention to how long they hug you when saying goodbye. But
what
I
does
mean,
it mean
it's
if you lend them your cup, which has got your name on it?
Yeah.
A cup of tea in your
It's
cup.
kind of obvious. If someone grabs you and holds you for over 7 seconds...
It's a bit odd, isn't it?
Yeah, it would be quite a... I mean, that is quite a long time.
Yeah.
I think, you know, in terms of the physical contact...
Well, imagine at work, right? If I came up to you in the morning and sort of gave you a hug and I was still there 7 seconds later,
that's
you'd
what
be
I mean.
going, you know, excuse me.
It's quite a long
Get
time
out.
to cling to somebody.
Get her off me.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you?
I think so.
I would.
I mean, nothing personal.
No, of course.
But I think also there's just a lot of physical holding and clutching with Zelensky and Macron.
Yeah.
Even whether it goes
weird,
into a sort of bro, you know, the fist bump and all of that.
Yeah, it's
He's
very
always
odd.
clinging to them.
It's very strange. Very strange indeed. I guess we better talk about Israel and Qatar and Donald Trump. Front pages of a lot of the papers today. Front page of The Times. Israel risks Trump's wrath by hitting Hamas in Qatar. The Telegraph goes further and says Trump condemns Israeli airstrike on Qatar. Trouble with all of these things, there's a lot of posturing, isn't there?
Yeah.
You know, like so America knew Israel were going to do it.
Yeah.
Some people say Qatar actually knew they were going to do it because nobody, it would appear, serious has been killed.
No, exactly. Well, Caroline Leavitt, the White House spokesman, has been very clear that she said it does not advance Israel or America's goals. And also, this was a strike in a neutral, in a sovereign third-party country.
Yeah.
So it does, you know, it does raise serious questions. It doesn't make, there's sort of been international outrage. It doesn't make Netanyahu's position any easier.
And the other thing, Starmer was very heavily criticised.
He didn't know anything about this.
Right, but
He's
also 2 days before, there were 6 people gunned down in Jerusalem, you know, by Hamas terrorists, clearly, or certainly by Islamist terrorists, right? Netanyahu says this is revenge for that.
Yeah.
And all of these people like Starmer who condemn it and say it's not something that Israel should have done, they don't condemn the fact that Qatar seems to host the leaders of Hamas, who live openly in great wealth in the middle of Doha.
In their headquarters. This is where the attack was on. This is where the strike was, on their headquarters.
Right.
Exactly. But also...
You know, I don't mind them condemning Israel, but let's condemn everyone. Let's condemn Qatar for hosting Hamas.
Exactly.
Because that really should be condemned. Here's what Trump had to say.
This morning, the Trump administration was notified by the United States military that as Israel was attacking Hamas, which very unfortunately was located in a section of Doha, the capital of Qatar. Unilaterally bombing inside Qatar, a sovereign nation and close ally of the United States, that is working very hard and bravely taking risks with us to broker peace, does not advance Israel or America's.
I'm not thrilled about the whole situation. It's not a good situation. But I will say this, we want the hostages back, but we are not thrilled about the way that went down today. I'm never surprised by anything, especially when it comes to the Middle East.
Yeah, he's not happy about it. But, you know, the fighting will rage on. Chris says, morning, Mike. Looks like Mandelson is on his way out. Stage 3 for Starmer. And this one from Em in Bath. Morning, Mike and Emma. Wes Streeting referring to Mandelson as the ambassador puts me in mind of the Ferrero Rocher ads. Ambassador, with this illegal activity, you're really spoiling us. That is great. You can see him as a sort of ingenious kind of, you know, Uriah Heep figure.
Absolutely.
Do you remember when he was in the White House, when Starmer was there, and he was kind of standing at the back, so almost rubbing his hands.
Oleaginous,
yeah, just kind of like, oh,
but
the
also,
oil literally dripping off.
I love that. You can absolutely see him in a bathrobe eating Ferrero Rocher as the ambassador.
No, being fed
official
Ferrero Rocher by somebody, you know.
By someone, one of Epstein's minions.
Bob in Chiswick says, Mike, Wes Streeting says, who would want to associate with? Why is Streeting giving Mandelson a free pass? My God, if he's scapegoating for Mandelson, I worry whether Labour should be allowed to organise the remit for the grooming gang inquiry. Well, this is the trouble. You know, they make excuses for each other all the time. Sean in Norfolk says, Mandelson must go. These bloody Labour lot. Epstein was a horrid individual. Those around him also. He must be sacked as well, as we need an election. I mean, we really do.
We really do, Mike.
Better,
and you've been saying since the beginning, they're not going to last, they're not going to last.
No.
And I just keep praying and hoping that you're right. And we're not. They're clinging on.
It is extraordinary,
isn't
it?
It's very, very painful to watch.
It really is. Now, we're coming up to yet another break, so let's just have a quick voice note from Mark.
Morning, it's Mark in Lancashire. So we've finally found out why this Tim Davie idiot wears white trainers with a suit. Because he's running towards problems. Yeah, that's why he's got to run. That's why he wears his white Adidas with a blue suit looking like a clown. Absolute idiot.
Mark, brilliant. I mean, this is the trouble with these. You can't take them seriously, can you? I mean, they all take themselves terribly seriously. They all think they're really, really important people. And they're all paid an awful lot of money by the public purse. But they're all useless.
It is an absolute...
Literally useless.
I have to agree with Mark. It's a total clown look. I like the look of a good suit with a pair of very, very white trainers, but it's absolutely... No, it looks good, style-wise.
Yeah.
But it's not appropriate. If you're being paid, I don't know, $1 million, $500,000, $2 million, whatever Tim Davie is paid, it's not appropriate to wear trainers to work.
Yeah.
Put a suit on if you're going to go to the House of Commons.
Also, go to the House of Commons.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Facing a a select committee, go and put some proper leather shoes on.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Tie-ups. Maybe they can't tie them up.
Maybe not. Maybe Velcro. Deborah in Essex says, morning, Mike and Emma. Did these illegal immigrants sue France for the appalling conditions they were in? Just a thought. It's a good question.
It's a very good question. That's what I keep going back to. In France, they're in tents, you know. They're in tents along the coast.
Right.
Here,
and there's sexual assaults going on all the time there.
Of course there are. And here they arrive and they're immediately... And do you know what's really interesting, Mike? Cycling around London, as one has to at the moment. Cycling around London, they're clearing the tent encampments from, you know, the centre of London.
Yeah.
Like places like Euston and places like Mayfair and Park Lane. And then they're springing up again. Days later, the tent encampments are coming back.
No.
So the police
There's a lot of it going on.
Whoever's doing it, the police are basically totally
Somebody
powerless.
said to me that Somebody said to me the reason for that is that they've somehow done away with or completely revamped the Vagrancy Act so that now people can just sleep rough and there's no problem. But let me come back to you with that one as well. Peter says this, the BBC says it will be taking care of reform voters. Is that the taking care in the mafia sense, as they used to say in Pulp Fiction? Never mind, 6:51, back after this.
I think that people just had enough of him. There's people are more worried about putting their, getting to work and putting the food on their table than another moan. Oh, my brother wasn't as nice to me as he should have been moan, and things like this. I think people have had enough of the Harry and Meghan story, and really, I think if the King did actually see him, what are they going to discuss? Well, I would imagine, what sort of money what payouts are you going to get?
I mean, that is frightening, but so true.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, coming up to 6:55 very nearly. We're nearly done with the first hour already. Emma Wolf is here. Let's get a voice note from James.
Morning, Mike. James from Blackburn. Yep, Sakir, I know why he's got a cup with his name on. It's actually the rest of the cabinet and everybody in Downing Street have actually requested it because they don't want to drink from a cup that he's drunk from because they don't want a disgusting cold sore on the mouth. Keep up the good work, Mike.
Brilliant. See, they remember everything.
That's really mean, James. It's very funny, but it's mean.
There's the cold sore. Do you remember that?
It's not. No, that's mean.
That is absolutely
no one can help having the herpes virus complex simplex, whatever they call it. I think they've forgotten who he is.
Yeah, but you can cover it up, though.
Yeah, you can.
You could have done that. I said it's the first thing he hasn't covered up in his whole first 14 months in charge. This from Jane. Morning, Mike and Emma. I hope I'm not being sexist, but so far 3 women who have had to resign from Starmer's cabinet, and currently 3 of the great officers of state are occupied by women. Is the best person for the job in the post, or is this virtue signalling? Well, of course it's virtue signalling, because they can't have another white man as the Deputy Prime Minister, can they? So they had to appoint David Lammy, who's not white, and then the Deputy Leader of the party also can't be a white man, so they'll just have to find a woman.
I'm just so bored of this thing about tokenism. It doesn't matter whether they're a man or a woman. We just want the best person for the job.
Yeah.
I don't think there are any best people for the job in the Labour Party.
There's nobody qualified to do anything.
I think loads of us women think it doesn't matter. We don't care whether it's a woman. Well, I'm embarrassed by the behaviour of Angela Rayner, frankly.
And do you remember when he did that thing, with when he appointed Rachel Reeves, the first woman?
Yes.
She'd be the first woman Chancellor.
She went on and on and on about that.
Yeah.
She literally said she was the first woman Chancellor, I think, in 200 years or something since Shakespeare. Right. I mean, she had the most bizarre... Yes.
Now, here's a story that's an unusual one. From the page 11 of The Sun, the world has got more fat than starving children for the first time, according to UNICEF.
Yeah, obesity rates rocketing. Well, I mean, it's... What do you expect when you close down playgrounds? You close down, you put the world into lockdown for 5 years. I mean, the whole thing is an absolute disaster.
I thought we were collecting money for people who were starving, though.
Well, exactly. Of course we are. But, I mean, the whole thing is a disaster, and I think children being addicted to their phones and all of that. I mean, just staring at screens all day and sitting indoors. Of course they're unhappy and depressed, and they've all got ADHD and this, that and the other.
Ultra-processed food is increasingly replacing fruits, vegetables and protein at a time when nutrition plays a critical role in children's growth, brain development and mental health. This is according to Catherine Russell, Director of UNICEF.
Yeah, and of course people...
What are they doing about it?
What are they doing about it? Absolutely
nothing. Is that their job?
Well, they can't collect. I mean, they've got a photo in the Sun of a child eating a tasty-looking burger.
Right.
I suppose they can't really collect funds based on these children are too fat. We need to help them.
We need to help them, yeah.
So yeah, we are in an absolute mess, aren't we?
A bit
but I mean,
strange.
go into any sort of major hospital and you'll see machines with junk food in.
Yeah.
So what do they expect?
I know. What about climate scepticism? Let's have a quick word about that. But before that, Cliff says this: let the migrants sue, give them the cash, and then reclaim it immediately as proceeds of crime. That's quite a good idea.
You know when people say charge them back for all the NHS costs and all that, you're never going to get a penny back, even if you succeeded in deporting any of these illegal migrants. You really think that you sent them back to their country, that you think the government will claw back a penny of all the benefits that they've received.
I know.
Never.
Well, not unless we just stop
going
paying those countries money for every reason that we pay them money
and they
for.
pay us back. We're never going to get a penny of that money back.
No. Front page of the Times, a number of Britons who think the dangers of global warming have been exaggerated has jumped by more than 50% in the past 4 years.
Good. Sanity is finally returning to the world.
Absolutely.
And people are fed up with being told they can't, use their car that is only a few years old. They're fed up with being told they can't drive here, they can't drive there.
Yeah.
The whole thing has been a real industry, hasn't it?
Oh, totally, yeah.
The climate
And there are
hysteria.
so
Not
many...
that there aren't issues to discuss, but the climate hysteria has been an absolute...
Well, it's been a business, a racket for so many people who have made bucket loads of money out of it.
What about GB Energy? Have you got any update on that fellow?
Jürgen.
The one who said... Jürgen, our friend Jürgen.
Actually, we haven't talked about Jürgen for a while. Maybe
He
we'll
sits
check
in
it
that
out.
massive office in Aberdeen going, I don't know what GB Energy does, don't ask me, I just take the salary.
We don't do anything to be the prices of it either. And also, I mean, he doesn't employ... I think they've got one employee. Well, maybe we'll check the situations vacant, because that's what we normally do, see if anybody's going to go and work there. But thank you. Emma Wolf, thank you very much indeed. Great to see you. I've got lots more to do. Coming up, Joanne Bell's going to be joining us to have a look at what's going on in the big wide world. Eddie Henman, the bizarre editor of The Sun as well, will tell us all the latest on the Greg Wallace front, and we'll bring more and more of your messages to the fore, because there's some brilliant ones coming in today. 0344 499 1000, and we've got Mandelson to hear from a little bit later on. Peter Mandelson, that is, a little bit later on in the show. This is Talk.
My message to people smugglers is this. I think smashing the gangs is a deterrent. Smash the gangs. Smash the people smuggling gangs.
People smuggling puns.
He couldn't even smash an avocado for a piece of toast.
Or the people... What would that... The people...
I think smashing the gangs is a deterrent. Well, it might be if you smashed any, if you found any.
The people smash... Those... The smash...
And he hasn't smashed anything. I mean, literally all he does is he smashes records every sort of couple of weeks, where more and more people come in a period of 24 hours.
Smash the gangs that are running this vile trade.
You're never going to smash the gangs. That's something that basically is impossible. The gangs are like the Hydra. You cut the head off and another two grow.
So I did write to ministers and say that I wasn't convinced that smashing the gangs was the right sort of way of thinking about things.
We will smash the gangs that undermine our security.
Keir Starmer has just tweeted 15 minutes ago. He says, I know you're angry about immigration. I get it. We will smash the people smuggling gangs at source. Maybe I'll just read it all in his accent, shall I?
There is no return to freedom of movement. We have left the EU. I do not accept that prevents us working with other police units here, with prosecutors here, to smash the gangs.
Well, I'm sure the smuggling gangs are absolutely quaking in their boots now. Keir Starmer is on their case. Solving this issue, smashing the gangs, is that the impossible dream, Tom?
It really seems beyond him at the minute, I have to say.
We're going to get the evil people smugglers and we're going to smash them and we're going to put them in jail. That will solve the migrant crisis. Prime Minister Keir Starmer's promise to smash the gangs has resulted in just 5 convictions. Hurrah for operating small boats.
So what he really wants to say is that this policy of smashing the gangs is a total and utter disaster. There isn't a cat in hell's chance that it's going to work. You just can't say it.
It's crap. That's what he's basically saying.
I know you're angry about immigration. I get it. Mark my words, I will take back control of our borders. That means cutting migration, ending the use of asylum hotels, and ramping up our efforts to stop small boat crossings.
It's like a parallel universe, the real world, as told by the impressive David Bolt, and Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves' fantasy world.
We will smash the people smuggling gangs at source.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. Coming up to 3 minutes past 7. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10 o'clock. Alex Phillips in for Julie Hartley-Brewer. The podcast out just around about 10:15, 10:30 every single weekday morning. It's Wednesday, the 10th of September, and the papers are chock full of stories this morning, ladies and gentlemen. As you might expect, many of the broadsheets, as we would call them, the serious papers, are leading with the attack on Hamas headquarters by the Israelis yesterday in Qatar. Israel risked Trump's wrath by hitting Hamas in Qatar. Trump condemns Israeli airstrike on Qatar, according to the Daily Telegraph. But much more interestingly, in a big front page picture, both in the Telegraph and on the front page of the Daily Mail, Epstein's £1 billion deal with Peter Mandelson. And again, Peter Mandelson in a bathrobe, sitting in what looks like a very nice, cosy house with Jeffrey Epstein, the convicted paedophile, in 2002 on the financier's private island. Stunning new revelation, says the Daily Mail. Why in God's name did our bathrobe-clad ambassador to Washington fawn over wicked paedophile who called him Petey? And then they say Mandelson's on the rack over his best pal Epstein, and he certainly is, because critics are now asking why he could continue to stay in his job as ambassador to the United States of America just a week before the crucial state visit by Donald Trump, where he's coming here. The Labour peer has expressed his regret for ever having met Epstein, but what he hasn't explained is what he was doing in his apartment while Epstein was actually serving time in prison for soliciting a minor for sex, and what on earth he was doing still being friends with him even after knowing that he was a convicted paedophile. These questions and many others will still need to be answered. The Sun has got their own exclusive, and it's about Greg Wallace. Apparently he's going to sue the BBC for distress, because basically he says he wants the release of hundreds of pages of secret documents. He reckons they will clear his name and help him claw back millions in lost earnings after he's booted out for what he calls inappropriate behaviour. He says, I will not go quietly. Well, indeed he won't. Also, Rachel Reeves, rather amusingly this morning on the front page of the Times, saying, we must all learn to live within our means. Well, it'd be good if she showed how to do that by example, wouldn't it? 0344 499 1000 is the number. We've got so much to do, so many people to talk to. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. And it really is quite an extraordinary day, because yesterday, believe it or not, there was the first actual cabinet meeting of the new cabinet. They waited till Tuesday after being given their new jobs on Friday in the wake of Angela Rayner falling on her sword and resigning, not just from the deputy leadership of the Labour Party, but also the deputy prime ministership of the Labour Party, and of course her own portfolio of the Department of State for Housing, Levelling Up and Communities. So we've had a whole raft of changes in the government, and just before we speak to Joanna Bell, political commentator, let's have a look at Keir Starmer, complete with his own mug with a name on it, says Sir Keir Starmer. Here he is yesterday.
Well, good morning, colleagues. Let me welcome you to this cabinet team and to the next stage of our journey as we move from the stage of fixing the foundations now on to the stage of national renewal. And you are all here around this table, each and every one of you, because you're the right people for this stage of our journey. The right people, therefore, to focus on our priorities, which are economic growth and national renewal. And the right people to heed the patriotic call to lift up our country and take it forward to national renewal for millions of working people. And that focus on economic growth and national renewal is not one department or some departments. It's every department. It's everybody around this table. That is the priority of the government, because our mission is to deliver for working people.
Our mission is to deliver for working people. It's not a mission. You were elected to run the country, so far running it into the ground. How about this, though? Do you remember when he talks about building the foundations before? Check this out.
Fixing the foundations is like finding damp in your wall. You can paint over it and get the hairdryer out and dry it. All done that. Hope it goes away. Or you can strip it out, rip out the plaster and deal with the problem once and for all.
Yeah, once you rip out the plaster, it's done. It's all better now, isn't it? Don't put a hairdryer on it, though. I wouldn't do that if I were you. He says we've all done it. I'm going to speak to Joanna Bell now. Joanna, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. How are you today?
I'm very well.
To see you.
Have you ever ripped out some damp in your wall and dried it with a hairdryer?
No, I haven't actually. But if I did, I don't think I'd be. I think I'd be getting professional help. I think that Keir Starmer's analogies leave a lot to be desired.
They really do. And one of our very eagle-eyed viewers spotted the fact that he's got a mug at that cabinet table with his name on it.
I mean, look, he's very funny. You can tell he practices in the mirror, you know, with his hairbrush. But I mean, are these really? He's sat beside David Lammy. Are these really the right people to have in your cabinet? Does anybody feel a sense of safety knowing that these are the people running the country?
Well, this is the trouble. I mean, until last Friday, when Angela Rayner resigned, basically, he didn't want to change the cabinet. There was talk of a sort of a mini reshuffle coming this week, but suddenly all guns blazing, he starts sacking people right, left and centre, some of whom are now running to become the new leader, deputy leader of the party, who are going to cause him all sorts of trouble.
Well, that's the thing, you know, it's a shambles, it's shambolic, and the very people he should have got rid of, Ed Miliband, Rachel Reeves, he's kept them in situ, and that's the scariest part, because they probably are costing the economy so much money that, you know, they're the very ones that need to be removed, and he hasn't done any of that.
Well, apparently tried to remove Ed Miliband, and Ed Miliband refused to go. And so he just stayed where he was. And Rachel Reeves the same. You know, she's had the gall in Times this morning to be saying to her various different departments of state, you need to live within your means. Well, maybe she should try a bit of that.
Oh, the irony of it all. I mean, she's literally almost bankrupt the country. That people are, you know, going to the job centre in their droves because employers can't afford to keep them on, because she's hiked up tax, she's hiked up national insurance, she's hiked up business rates. I mean, never before has the welfare bill been so high. And we have to leave the blame squarely at her door for that. So the irony of her telling us we need to live within our means, it's shocking that she said that, because she is the very one that is bankrupting this country. Yeah. They're putting asylum seekers in luxury hotels and paying for them. And now, because they've been put on the military camps, the asylum seekers are suing the government. And
how is it possible for them to even do that? It's insane, isn't it?
Well, that expression, no good deed goes unpunished, you know, comes into play here. And, you know, it's obviously Keir Starmer's friends, his human rights lawyers, who are probably the ones that are representing these people and getting the legal aid. Lord Hermer, all of these people are probably, you know, laughing all the way to the bank.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
laughing.
They'll be putting in their bill for services rendered to the taxpayer. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much indeed. Meanwhile, what about Peter Mandelson? He's all over the front pages this morning as well. A very revealing photograph of him sitting in a bathrobe talking to Jeffrey Epstein on his private island in 2002, when presumably Mandelson was in the Blair government.
It stinks. I mean, it's highly embarrassing for him. He has to resign, because this whole thing is just absolutely, it just looks so bad. I mean, I think you said earlier on the show that this is after he knew that Epstein was a paedophile.
That's right.
So, I mean, this is really bad, because I know that Sarah Ferguson, I think she took a loan off him of 15 grand after she knew that he was a convicted paedophile.
Yes.
So where is the judgment of these people? You know, they have no qualms about taking the hospitality off a paedophile. So you have to wonder what the benefit to them is, and why he went out there. I would like to hear a statement from Mandelson to find out. And also, the big question is why did Keir knew all this before he sent him out to Washington? So why did Keir send him out there knowing that he had relations?
Well, this is the thing, and knowing as well that he was still friends with Epstein even after he knew that he was a sex offender, so much so that he even stayed in his apartment when Epstein was actually in prison for trying to solicit a minor for sex.
Oh
so,
my God.
you know, there's no way he can get out of this, basically.
Well, you know, stranger things have happened, but he definitely needs to resign. But also, we knew all this, didn't we? We knew this before he was appointed as the British ambassador to America. So why exactly was he put in that role? I think Keir Starmer needs to answer that question.
Yes. And also, 1 week ahead of Donald Trump's state visit to this country, Starmer finds himself once again in a bind, because if he punishes Peter Mandelson for his friendship with Epstein, you know, how does that react then to other people whose names are on lists? What will Donald Trump make of that? Will he see it as some kind of an attack on his friendship with Epstein? You know, it's all a massive mess, isn't it? Once again, Starmer has chosen the wrong man for the wrong job and shown that he's got no judgment.
Well, he can't, because if he condemns Mandelson or ousts Mandelson, then he will be, you know, have to condemn Donald Trump. And he's not going to do that, is he? You know, he's shown himself to, you know, kowtow to Donald Trump. So it's going to be a situation where it's probably just going to be swept under the carpet. And, you know, it'll be a new story next week, because he really can't say anything to Mandelson. You know, there's nothing that you can say.
Well, of course, you've got Epstein's former housekeeper said to the Telegraph in the paper this morning, photos were taken in 2002. This is the one of him in the bathrobe, right? When the Labour peers stayed on the island for almost a week. Epstein's abuse of underage girls was well underway by that time. Sarah Ransom, one of his victims, said something is really, really wrong here. Peter Mandelson should not be ambassador. He needs to be fired. Everybody knew about Mandelson's close friendship with Epstein. You know, he calls him his best pal.
Wow. I mean, I don't know about you, but it makes me feel sick to my stomach.
It's pretty horrible, isn't it?
Even just seeing those pictures, you think, oh my goodness, like how are these people in positions of power? I mean, I think it wasn't Mandelson, wasn't he called the Prince of Darkness?
He was.
He
also had to resign from the government twice, usually due to financial, shall we say, misconduct, to be polite.
Well, let's hope it's a hat trick. Let's hope he resigns. But then who are they going to put in his place? It'll probably be some other person tainted by, you know, sleaze. Again, it's just sleaze, isn't it? So, I mean, I don't think he's going to resign. I don't think they're going to rock the boat. But I think it's very embarrassing for Mandelson, and I would like to hear an explanation about why he was hanging around with a convicted paedophile.
Yeah, but it needs a bit of an explanation from Keir Starmer as well, it seems to me.
Well, exactly. He knew all this, so that's the point. Where is Keir Starmer? Mandelson obviously knows where the bodies are buried. Yeah. You know, because why did Keir put him in that position, knowing what what he'd done in the past? And you know, these pictures look pretty compromising for him.
Piece in the Mail today, a big spread about how the left ladies are lining up to come for Keir Starmer, and the 6 who are challenging to be deputy leader of the Labour Party, over which, again, Keir Starmer has no control, right? He's trying to make out that he wants Bridget Phillipson in there, but other people think Emily Thornberry might get it, or very possibly Lucy Powell, who looks like she's quite popular with the people that don't like him. And they've all got an axe to grind against him, right? And Dan Hodges has written a piece, Control Freak Prime Minister fears he can't trust his own party, and he's right. On the eve of the general election, Keir Starmer said to the country, I've changed the Labour Party and put it back in the service of working people, and now I want to change Britain to make it work once again for you and your family. How's that going?
Oh, that's ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, actually, you know, I just think, look, she's probably the best of a bad bunch, Mike. What do you think? I mean, if you
Who? Phillipson?
Well, I mean, who else is there? Are you going to go for Emily Thornberry?
I think the funniest choice would be Emily Thornberry. I think that'd be hilarious. So for my journalistic principles, I would like to see Emily Thornberry get it. The rest of them, I couldn't care less. They're all pretty nasty, ghastly people.
On a personal level, I like Emily Thornberry. However, you know, she's so pro-Palestine. Her whole...
Oh no, she's a dreadful woman. She's dreadful. I just think it'd be funny if she got it though.
She's actually great at the dispatch box. I think that she's a really great. Debater, but you know, at the end of the day,
terrible snob and champagne socialist.
Well, that's it. Well, her name is Lady Nugie, don't you know?
That's it. Absolutely right. Shocking state of affairs. Anyway, listen, Joe, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Joe and a belt. We're going to run. We've got lots to be getting on with. Let's get a voice note from Sean on Bridget Phillipson.
Morning, Mike. Sean from Grimsby here. I see Bridget Phillipson's now taking a leaf from Boehner's book, trying to get elected. Oh, I'm from the north, I'm a woman, I had a tough upbringing. Well, do you know what, Bridget? Join the club, mate, right? Just because you're working class, right? It does not mean us working classes are going to vote for you, right? It doesn't even mean we're going to like you. You need to get this through your thick heads. And I'm taking it, you haven't been up north any time lately, otherwise you'd get chased out with pitchforks, man. Great show, Mike. Keep it up.
Sean, thank you very much indeed. This is the trouble. You know, they've given up on their roots in the north of England because they've all made it into grace and favour mansions down south, and they rather like it. And they rather like the all-expenses paid lunches and dinners, and they rather like the ministerial limousines, and they rather like the expensive introductions to, you know, world leaders, and they rather like all the state banquets. And they don't give a stuff about the tough upbringing they had on a council estate in Newcastle or wherever it is, because they never go there. They don't want to go back there. They just use it as an episode to kind of aggrandise themselves, to say, look how well I've done. Look what I've done. And in fact, they've done very little. What they have done is ruined the country. Here's one from Peter in Norwich. Mike, if we all conducted our household budget in the manner that Rachel from Accounts runs the country's budget, spending more than we earn, borrowing money to give away, using one credit card to pay off another, then we would all be sitting on packing cases on the pavement, watching the bailiffs repossess our homes. Sack the incompetent fool. Yeah, which one, though? There's so many of them. And Sharon says, all that BBC lot are totally incompetent, and that Tim Davie needs to be sacked. Why the hell is this man still in his job? And Marco from Swindon says, glorious morning to you, Mike. I'm just here to complain about my water bill going up by 50% in the last month after Starmer gave that cobbler speech about cracking down on water bosses, remember? Yeah, of course. What happened to that? What happened to that crackdown? More drivel, same old, same old. Absolutely right. Lots more to come. This, of course, is Morning Glory. Very good morning to you, by the way. Morning Glory with me, Mike Graham.
Just some breaking news for you coming out of Liverpool Crown Court.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the programme. Welcome to the Home of Common Sense.
Loads to talk about, I promise you that. Loads and loads and loads.
Yes, it's me again, your genial host, Kevin O'Sullivan.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock, 7:22 right now. This from Jim in Wales says, Mike, the footage of Starmer's new cabinet is truly painful. Surrounded by a load of smiling failures. Cooper sacked, Kendall sacked, Lammy sacked. All moved sideways because this is literally the depth of his talent pool. At least we don't have to see that hooligan Chancellor Rayner for a bit. He can't sack Reeves yet, but he will soon. He wanted to sack Crazy Miliband, but needed a big lefty in the cabinet to keep his lefty MPs quiet. Let's have a listen to what Dan has to say.
Morning, Mike. It's Dan from Kent. Starmer taking his cabinet meeting yesterday and saying you're the right people for the right jobs. Hold on, they're the same people, just in different seats. He raised his memory bank for the last 14 months or something? It's unbelievable. It really is. Yeah, he's taken some people who didn't know what they were doing in their old jobs into giving them a new job where they don't know what they're doing. To start again. Like Shabama Mahmood, who decided the best thing she could do is have a meeting about how to stop the boats on Monday. So far, 5 times as many migrants have come into Britain since she became the Home Secretary than they did before. So that's a bit of a triumph. Also, people are now starting to talk in proper terms about the removal of Keir Starmer. Even on Newsnight last night, people were talking to Labour members of Parliament who doubt whether the Prime Minister now is of any use to them, and they resent the way which he conducts his government reshuffle, and they're now plotting ways to get rid of him. That's literally where we are. It's extraordinary. Let's talk, though, now to Shabnam Chowdhury, because we need to change the gears slightly and talk a bit about the policing of this country, because, of course, one of the things that's been in the news is that the police need to stop policing non-crime hate incidents and policing tweets. And it's now been not just Sir Mark Rowley, the head of the Metropolitan Police, but other police leaders who are saying police should separate offensive statements from actual crimes. Shabnam, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for joining us. I mean, the trouble is they keep saying these things, but nothing seems to change. You know, I mean, I remember 2 or 3 years ago, police officers were told to stop recording non-crime hate incidents, but it seems as though not only are they still recording them, they're actually increasing the number of people they arrest for them.
Yeah, I think that Andy Cook, the HM Chief Inspector of Constabulary, has obviously come out with this report, and Sir Mark Rowley mentioned this within the last few weeks. Yes. I'm surprised they didn't talk about this so much sooner. Unfortunately, what happens is that frontline police officers get crimes or alleged crimes reported to them, or people go online to report offensive tweets and or social media stuff, and instead of you know, police managing expectations and saying this is not a crime, it's not going to be recorded, it's there for intelligence purposes only, and sorry, we're not going to be doing any more. There's frontline police officers that investigate are scared not to investigate, supervisors are not managing it as well as what they should be. Right. But most importantly, really the tech companies should be dealing with anything that is so grossly offensive that they either, you know, remove these accounts or they shut them down. But there's nothing wrong with free speech. There's nothing wrong with, you know, it's not right, I'm saying, but that to speak offensively about someone, so long as it doesn't cross the line into criminality, i.e. inciting violence or some form of attacks on somebody, or there's an immediate risk to somebody of being violently assaulted. So these things unfortunately happen, and tech companies need to manage it, and the public need to obviously manage the fact that there are people out there that are grossly offensive, and unfortunately that's life. If you don't like it, don't go on social media.
Well, exactly right. And I mean, the trouble is that we hear these complaints all the time, and some even individual police officers are saying, you know, it's not very clear what the guidelines are. I mean, Mark Rowley was basically saying a couple of days ago, we need to actually change the law to protect people and their free speech. Is that what needs to be done?
I think what needs to be done is they need to look at the legislation that they've got and actually apply it and look at whether something is a crime or whether it's a non-crime. Recording of non-crime incidents has been going on for decades and decades. We used to do it all the time. It was actually very useful, particularly in domestic abuse, but now that has changed in relation to violence against women and girls, for the better, of course. But recording somebody, telling somebody they don't like them because of the colour of their skin or because of the fact that they dress differently or because of they are from one of the protected characteristics isn't a crime, but it's a waste of police time to, one, to have to record it, to two, to either have to pick up the phone to the alleged victims, and then three, to then have to go and warn the perpetrators not to be offensive. And I think that, unfortunately, it's been so badly diluted that police officers don't have the experience and supervisors aren't actually giving the support to those officers to say, don't worry about it, I've got your back, close the crime down or close this non-crime down and leave it at that.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's happened. It's ridiculously amount of social media. We are in the world of social media. That is not going to change now. So something needs to change in the way that police respond to these type of incidents.
Yeah, because surely they should be able to just, if somebody, I presume the way it works is somebody makes a complaint in writing to the police about something that somebody else has said on social media, and do they feel then that they have to act on it, or could they just look at it and go, actually, that's not very serious, so I'm not even going to bother investigating it?
Well, in my day, with my experience and the calibre of police officers that we had, 15 years ago, that would be a lot easier to do. But now they don't necessarily have the experience. They don't have the right training for police officers, even as they go through the training, for them to be able to make that judgment call. And it is about a judgment call, but using your common sense and actually having the understanding of whether you're going to investigate something. As soon as somebody says, oh, I'm going to go and complain about you, and that's it, they'll go and investigate it. No, I'm sorry, let me manage your expectations. We are not investigating this because it's not a crime. It is offensive. I'm sorry that you've been offended, but either block your social media, come off social media, or get back in touch with the tech company and ask them to actually remove this person's account.
Yes. Yeah, because that would be where the remedy sort of lasts and exists, isn't it? I mean, that's, if somebody's a perpetual kind of, abuser on Twitter, you can have your account suspended. It does happen to people. And that should be the end of it, surely.
Yeah, exactly. And I think what happens is that when people are subjected to some sort of a threat, or if somebody is subjected to abuse about their appearance or the colour of their skin or their background or nationality, whatever it is, there's a difference. And the difference is, if you're being subjected to a threat and this person has the ability to carry out that threat, or they're inciting somebody else to carry out, clearly that's a crime. But if you're being abused because of the fact that somebody has an opinion on you, then this is where the police need to be able to differentiate. And this is what Andy Cook is actually saying, is that we need to draw a line under this. We don't need to record non-crime hate incidents. Policy needs to change, and that will allow police to actually go out and police the streets effectively to catch the bad guys, criminals that go out shoplifting, because shoplifting has increased ridiculously, antisocial behaviour, criminal damage, all the kind of crimes that affect the day-to-day lives of just the general members of the public.
Yeah, absolutely. Makes perfect sense. Let's hope somebody actually picks up on it and runs with it. Shabnam Chowdhury, thank you very much indeed, former Scotland Yard Detective Superintendent, on the continued calls by the police, for the police to stop investigating non-crime hate incidents. The clue's in the name. It's not a crime, so don't investigate it. You don't need to. You're a criminal investigator. So if it's not a crime, you don't do it. Simple. Let's get a voice note from Carl.
Hi Mike, Carl in Derry. Another day, another Keir Starmer balls up. Mandelson, why is he still in office? He needs to be sacked. And why has Angela Rayner been allowed to stay in the Labour Party? I don't understand it. Why has Keir Starmer not sacked her? Why is Ed Miliband telling him that he can't sack him? Who's in charge of this country? It's unbelievable.
It is unbelievable, isn't it? It's certainly not Keir Starmer. Warwick says this from Devon. Good morning, Mike. Great show as ever. Is Stalin having a laugh on that new cabinet clip? He's preparing them all for flying a kamikaze mission. And Bitu says this. Did you hear, Mike, how the Prime Minister said we have the right people for this stage of government? So after this stage, there could be another reshuffle. Well, no doubt. Or somebody will have to resign. And Christopher says, Mike, which naval bigwig is being sacked today for allowing a vessel of unknowns to land on our shores unhindered? That's technically an invasion of sorts, isn't it? This is the story that the first boat, supposedly in 3 years, unapproached, if you like, by the Border Force and not brought to this country by the RNLI or anybody else official, has simply taken off from France, landed on a beach in the south coast of Britain, and the migrants have all got out of it and just wandered around. I've been saying for years that this is what's been going on, and there's probably thousands and thousands of undocumented migrants wandering around the country who came in that way. But apparently this is the first one in 3 years. Well, how do they know if they're not spotting them in the sea? That's a big problem, isn't it? This is Morning Glory. Coming up, we're going to talk about Greg Wallace. Ellie Henman joins us, bizarre editor at The Sun. We'll find out what the latest is on their front page story.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 7:35. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock, of course. Jeff in Durham says, why does Starmer keep saying we are working for working people? Why not the British people? Some can't work, some are pensioners, some are carers, some are children, some have disabilities and can't work. I agree, some don't work but should, but at the end of the day, it's British people, as in all of them, that they are there for. Why is it with Labour they need to label people and isolate more and more each day? Just a thought. It's a good thought, Jeff, yeah. I mean, I don't understand why they've invented this phrase, working people, which they keep saying. It doesn't make any sense to me either. Let's talk about what's on the front page of The Sun now. Ellie Henman joins us, bizarre editor at that great newspaper. The headline on page 1, Sacks Wallace sues the BBC. MasterChef host latest headache for telly bigwigs. Ellie, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike.
Great story, this. But, I mean, does he have any chance of winning? Is that what he thinks he's going to do?
I think Greg thinks he's got a very good chance of winning. I mean, this is a real headache for the BBC. So what he wants is access to this 200-page document, which he believes will help pave the way and help him be able to sue the BBC. He's ultimately claiming that no one investigated his neurodivergency. He doesn't feel like he was well supported by the BBC. And the first step for Greg is getting access to these documents, which he thinks will clear his name and help him take his case further. I mean, this is such a headache for the BBC. I think they believe this might be over. They were really hoping so. I mean, they did the investigation as best they could on MasterChef. They came up with the findings. Greg and John Turode obviously left after that investigation. But as with most people, Greg Wallace has made it clear kind of from the start that he wouldn't go quietly. And he's bided his time. And now he has lodged these papers at the High Court.
Right. And what does he think is in these particular papers? What is it that he's after?
He thinks it's discussions about him, things that were said about him. These documents will include internal correspondence. They'll include multiple things that were said, parts of the investigation he wasn't able to access. Now, as part of the investigation, obviously, we know there were 45 complaints made against Greg. some were struck out. He obviously wants access to those too, because he does feel that his reputation has been really damaged by this. He obviously gave an amazing interview with Clemmy Moody and sort of really fought to clear his name. You know, he did say, I apologise for what I've done wrong, but some of the most serious allegations I've been cleared of. And I think access to these documents will allow him to say, look, here it is, because I think he still thinks people don't believe him.
Yeah. And is it a case, does he think anyway, of the BBC just kind of panicking and going, oh, we better just sack everybody because we can't do anything else?
Well, the BBC very much are backed into that corner. You've seen it so often now with so many cases of wrongdoing and bad behaviour at the BBC, and they're struggling so badly to clean that corporation up. You saw Tim Davie yesterday sort of clutching at straws when he was trying to defend the corporation, and you think, well, actually, there are people at the BBC who have behaved badly and they need to come out. But sometimes the handling hasn't been the best. I think they need a better handling system. They need a better complaint system at the BBC to centralise the entire thing, to stop it becoming so messy.
Well, Tim Davie, as you say, was before a parliamentary committee yesterday. Let's have a look at what he had to say.
Are you able to assure us today, are you able to give us your categorical assurance that whenever we next have you in front of us, there won't be a scandal of BBC talent abusing their position, which you need to apologise for?
We are seeing people call it out, and that is a positive change, but it's ongoing work. I don't think you can change culture in 6 months and suddenly say nothing's going to occur. We may see more things coming out, because in some ways I'm asking for it and being utterly transparent and running towards the problem. That's what we need to do.
I mean, it's a bit disingenuous of Tim Davie to make out that you can't fix something in 6 months. I mean, he's been there longer than 6 months. What are you talking about?
And I find that absolutely wild. How about Tim Davie bringing a zero-tolerance approach to bad behaviour, and maybe that would stop it? I think there's always been this thing, especially in television, the talent. You can't upset the talent. Nothing must be said to upset the talent, because without the talent, the show gets made. And I think they've been pussyfooting around people for far too long. Put in a zero-tolerance policy, protect your staff, protect the people who work there. It's, to say you can't change something in 6 months, as you've made very clear, he's been there for a long time. It's just bananas. And I feel he was obviously squirming, and that must have been very painful for him. But you're paid a lot of money, Tim Davie, and I think, you can engender change, do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think he should change his white trainers, to be honest, because it looks ridiculous with a dark suit, but there we are. That's just my opinion. And what about Greg Wallace's kind of conversations with people like John Torode? Is he still talking to anybody? Has he been kind of isolated and exiled into, never working in TV again? Or can he actually come back?
No, so we know that Greg and John don't talk anymore. I think when this investigation started, they very much distanced themselves. John very much distanced himself from Greg. This was very difficult for them. I think they had a very strange relationship, because although, Greg was best man at John's wedding, but then John was like, I wouldn't describe us as friends. It was always a quite strange relationship. They were very close on screen and when they were filming, but when they weren't together, they weren't together at all, and they didn't talk. But no, they no longer talk. I don't think Greg will come back. I think he's admitted himself his television career is over. I think he feels that he wouldn't do a Philip Schofield and sort of end up on Castaway Island and on Channel 5 in a year's time. This is it for him. He's opened a sort of fitness business now, but in terms of the money Greg is earning in comparison to what he was being paid by the BBC, and in terms of all the deals he got off the back of that, his earnings have been quashed. And he's definitely trying to recoup some of that, recoup his reputation, and recoup the millions that we think he's going to be claiming for. I mean, this is going to be a big claim he's putting in. And BBC are going to have to fight very hard to get rid of it.
Yeah, and they can't really settle it, can they? It's not one of those things you can settle out of court, because he wants to see the documents and he wants to have his day in court, I guess.
I think so. I think Greg Wallace will not be going quietly. I think he'll go kicking and screaming as loudly as he can and make people see his side of a story.
Yeah, absolutely right. Well, it's a great story. Fantastic. Ellie, thank you very much indeed. Ellie Henman there, bizarre editor at The Sun. Zarina says this: Mike, if asylum seekers are suing the authorities, why shouldn't Greg? No criminal charges have been brought, and I believe he has a case for the BBC to answer. Well, I don't think there's any doubt that the BBC have completely mishandled almost every single case of scandal that they've ever had to deal with. They get them completely wrong. They got Hugh Edwards wrong. They obviously got Jimmy Savile wrong. They got Russell Brand wrong. Now they've got Greg Wallace wrong as well. And they either panic and do the wrong thing too quickly without taking sort of care to consider all the various different options, or they do nothing, as in the case of Hugh Edwards, where they did nothing and nothing and nothing for months and months and months and years, and he got away with absolutely ridiculous levels of sleaze and scandal and ghastliness, and he still hasn't repaid his pension. Or not his pension, but his payoff that he got, which he shouldn't have received, because basically he should have had gross misconduct written right above his file and been told to hop it. shouldn't he? Mark in Sussex says, Mike, I just took the wife a cup of tea. She's watching BBC Breakfast. Why? They were running a piece that's called World Suicide Day today. I think I'll stick with Morning Glory. Yeah, very good idea. Very, very smart indeed. Good morning to the wonderful Mike Graham, says Serena. It's all very well giving us a working class story. However, they do not represent the vast majority of working class people who have struggled their entire lives and will continue to face that same struggle despite the hard work and trying to improve the situation until our deaths. These politicians are patronising us. It is shameful. And Vicky says this. So, morning, Mike. We've had phase 1, even though nobody knew it. Phase 2 lasted 4 days. Now phase 3, which I presume is the patriotic phase. But don't worry, our family had a vote last night, and if phase 3 fails, we're going to do a Nepal. OK, if that's what you want to do, it's entirely up to you. This one from Dave in Liverpool. Mike, great show. Could you please remind us what the foundations were that Starmer was fixing and what the pillars were that he was talking about? Apparently these are all fixed now, so we can move on. Really? Well, you do wonder what he's talking about. Well, one of the things that he can't move on from is the Chagos Islands, because the bill was passed last night. The Chagos Islands deal was done, signed, sealed and delivered, so that Mauritius is now the proud owner of a set of islands that they didn't really ask for, which we have given them. But instead of them actually paying money for them, we've given them some money as well. It doesn't make any sense to me. We'll be talking to a British Chagosian to find out what they want to do about it. This is Talk.
You're looking at, someone mentioned in one of the clips you just played, that they are trying to keep the left of the party out of this contest. Well, it doesn't seem very much like they're succeeding on that front. And in any case, almost everybody in this party and in Parliament is on the left of the Labour Party anyway, and the Labour Party is on the left. So you're looking at some pretty extreme characters here.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 7:47. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock, of course. Morning, Mike, says Darryl from Lincoln. I've noticed that every time someone from the Labour government speaks, they talk a lot about foundations and laying the foundations. Are they actually a bunch of builders? Can we say Auf Wiedersehen pet to them? Well, if they were builders, they'd be dodgy builders, cowboy builders, wouldn't they? Because they'd come, old Starmer would come in with a hairdryer and go, I found some damp in the wall. I better just spray it with this hot air and see. We've all done it, as he says, right? Mike, if you think this new cabinet is going to fix the foundations, you're going to need a bigger hairdryer, says Els Bells in Shropshire. More hot air, nobody's falling for it. Plank. It's true. And Dave from Liverpool, could you please remind us what the foundations were that Starmer was fixing? Oh, we did that one already, I think. Let's get a voice note from Martin.
Hi Mike, Martin from Southampton. Great show as always. I'm going to live in my means the Rachel Reeves way, so I earn £45,000 a year. I'm going to spend £75,000 a year on my expenses, and I'll just keep borrowing from other people. And where do I get my free clothes, concert tickets and access to football matches, please? And when I don't get all that, I just sue the taxpayer. I think that's the way it works. Anyway, keep talking common sense. Thanks, Mike.
It's all we know how to do, Martin. Thank you very much indeed. You're quite right. How about this from Nan in Wales? Why on earth would Starmer be informed about what the IDF are planning? He had the bleeding Prime Minister from Palestine round for tea with their names on their cups. Nobody can trust him or his government. Simon says, morning, Mike. I think David Lammy has a cup that says mastermind on it. He might have. Let's have just a reminder, shall we, of what Starmer says he was fixing when he was fixing the foundations.
Fixing the foundations is like finding damp in your wall. You can paint over it and get the hairdryer out and dry it. All done that. Hope it goes away. Or you can strip it out, rip out the plaster and deal with the problem once and for all.
We've all taken a hairdryer to the wall to dry the damp. I don't think so. I'm not sure anybody's done that. What is he talking about? Morning, Mike, says Dave. In Cole, no wonder this country's in a mess when government ministers seem to spend all their time defending colleagues from scandal after scandal. That, surprise, surprise, they always regret. Yeah. And David says, every time I see the Prime Minister talk, I want to slap my TV. I'm sorry about that. And Anne from Kent says, Mike, the illegals arriving are far higher than the official numbers. One day a few years ago, my husband and I were walking on the seafront in Eastbourne. There were lots of people on the beach, and suddenly a boat arrived with about 20 plus migrants who jumped out and walked up the beach, all going in different directions and all disappeared. How many other beaches have had similar boats landing and nobody took any notice? Well, this is why we're talking about it this morning, because according to a piece in the papers, the first unaccompanied boat basically landed unchallenged on a British beach this week around 8 p.m. on Saturday without being intercepted by Border Force. The last time the Home Office recorded a so-called uncontrolled landing was in December 2022. But the whole point of these uncontrolled landings is the Home Office doesn't know they're happening. And I've been saying for years that because I know the South Coast pretty well, and you can take a boat anywhere from, say, Camber Sands, around Rye, around the sort of the corner into the south, from the southeast corner of Kent into Sussex, and all the way along the beaches to Hastings, all the way along Pett Level, all the way along those different parts of the country, all the way to Bexhill, you know, past Cooden Bay, Norman's Bay, all the way down. As you can see, I know the area pretty well, all the way down to Eastbourne. It is completely and utterly flat. You can land a boat anywhere you want, and nobody will see it, and nobody will see the people getting off it. And what they'll do is they'll wander into the town, or they'll go and live in a tent in the woods, and they'll never register for any kind of migrant hotel scenario, and they'll never, ever be found. And you don't know what they're going to be doing. And that is the problem. Here's what it says. This is now a full-blown borders crisis, according to Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp. We have not seen uncontrolled landings for years until now. This is a symptom that Labour cannot even remotely control what is going on across the Channel. This year so far has been the worst in history for Channel crossings as a result of Labour policy. This incident is another example of the uncontrolled border chaos unfolding under Labour. You know, this is the problem. And this could be, I mean, it could be at least 2 or 3 boats arriving per week, or possibly even more. The fact is the Home Office won't know and don't know, but the locals know. I mean, I've spoken to people in Hastings who have seen and watched boats landing near the fishing huts, which, if you know Hastings, you'll know quite well. There happens to be an RNLI post there as well. But, you know, the boat lands, the guys jump out and they run into town. And that's the last time you see them. I'm telling you, it's going on all the time. Let's talk to Jean-Francois Nellan. He's a British Chagosian. Yesterday evening in Parliament, the vote went through, the bill went through. People don't think there's much chance of it being held up in the House of Lords, I'm afraid, even though they could hold it up because it wasn't really in Labour's manifesto. But the sell-off to Mauritius of the Chagos Islands is now complete, pretty much. Jean-Francois, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Graham.
Thank you very much for talking to us. It happened last night. I don't know whether you're hoping or expecting anything to change as a result. What are you hoping for?
Well, there is a lot we were appointed, but having said that, I believe like the Lib Dem, who previously was for the treaty, but I think that's kind of changed their mind now. But you probably seen in the news yesterday where the Prime Minister has been referred to the ICC. Because of the crime committed against Chagosian.
Right.
But hopefully, it is like a serious issue, and hopefully the prosecutor will now review the complaint and decide whether to open a preliminary examination until the Labour government is stopped with that treaty.
Yes. And you guys have referred Starmer to the International Criminal Court, right?
Yes, correct. I said this is the serious issues of the crime against humanity, which include deportation and forced displacement and persecution of the Chagosian.
Yeah.
And our complaint does provide evidence that this crime continues to be committed by the Labour government.
Yeah. Jean-Francois, the line is a little bit tricky, so we're going to try and make it a better one if we can. But thank you for talking to us. British Chagosian there. They feel as if they've been left hanging out to dry, basically, by this government, who don't seem to have taken into account any of their feelings about what they would like to happen with their homeland. And it's not very clear now whether or not the ones who are from Chagos living here can even go home to see their families. It's not very clear at all. But what is clear is that it's going to cost millions and possibly billions and billions of pounds in the future to us as taxpayers. And it turns out that in Mauritius, of course, they no longer have to pay income tax because they've got so much money out of this deal. Absolutely extraordinary. Absolutely ridiculous. Let's get a voice note from Darren.
Morning, Mike. Darren from Walsall. So if 2-tier 3 gear says he's got the right people for the right jobs, so that means there was the wrong people for the wrong jobs for the last 14 months then? Is that what he's saying?
Well,
it's just comical. It's comical. Keep it up, mate.
Well, once again, thank you, Darren, for that. Once again, it appears that Keir Starmer's trying to cover his tracks by making out that, you know, because it's a new beginning, he needs new people in different jobs, like he did it deliberately, when in fact he was bumped into doing it because Angela Rayner had to resign, something that he was trying desperately to stop from happening, because he didn't want her to resign. And now that she has resigned, he's left without somebody that can control the left side of his party. And he's now had to sort of try and cover all that up by appointing a whole new lot of people to do jobs they're not qualified for. It's basically where we are, right? Incredible. Let's talk about the tube strikes, though, because if you're trying to get around London today, or even if you're planning to visit London this week, it's always going to be a bad situation because the whole city is literally ground to a halt. People are walking all over the place, people are cycling, people are getting on buses, but there were so many huge queues last night for the Elizabeth line, which is the only one that's been open. They're now threatening to shut the Elizabeth line. And yesterday, the Conservatives tweeted this out, and spot somebody that you might recognise in it.
You promised that there'd be 0 strikes in the capital.
So it's probably taken me twice as long to get in this morning.
Absolute pain for us, to be honest.
There's just a lot of scramble to get to work this morning.
And I'm asking the RMT to work with me so we can lobby the government.
To be honest, if I could keep up with all the cabinet changes, I could ask you to ask the Secretary of State for Transport. But
yeah,
I don't remember who that is.
Why doesn't he do his job, get round the table and get the trains running? Look, I don't support strikes. I think strikes are a sign of failure.
Strikes are a sign of failure. Whose failure would that be? Sadiq Khan's failure. That's right. He's now apparently lost all faith in the trade union negotiating process, and the union relations are now at an all-time low, according to a piece in the Mail today. And so there's no chance that any of these tube strikes are going to stop before Friday. Which means we've got another 2 days to go. Must be costing an awful lot of money, crippling the tube network. Thousands of members of the Rail, Maritime and Transport Union, that's the RMT, of course, are just not bothering going to work. They want a 32-hour week, they want a 4-day week, and they want free tickets or half-price tickets to Legoland. I kid you not. Absolutely incredible stuff, isn't it? John says this, my question is, why aren't these migrants or their governments made to pay back the $40,000 a year that they've received from the British people for their upkeep? Surely it would act as a deterrent if it was known they have to pay it all back if they're granted status. The British workers don't get away with anything. If we can't afford to pay the bills, we go into arrears and are hounded until we pay up. Absolutely right. Graham in Wrexham says social media is on the main used to air people's frustrations with life and give an opinion. I believe the police are using tweets as a weapon against the public, not the other way around, like they would have you think. I've got 3 children, all in their 30s, and not one of them use social media in any form. Quite impressive. That is impressive. Well done for you, Graham in Wrexham. Coming up in the next hour, we're going to be talking to Esther McVeigh, former Minister for Common Sense, of course, but also bringing the latest from Poland, because Russia has carried out what's being described as an unprecedented violation of Poland's airspace. This is according to Warsaw's military command. In a statement on X, the operational command of the Polish Armed Forces says it has detected drones in its airspace as a result of a Russian attack on Ukraine. There was unprecedented violation of Polish airspace, it said, adding this is an act of aggression that posed a real threat to the safety of our citizens. So things have heated up a little bit overnight in that particular region. We'll keep our eyes on that. We'll also keep our eyes on what's going on in the Middle East, because, of course, yesterday there was that attack launched by Israel, who said that they claim responsibility, they acted alone. They did ask the United States, or tell the United States what they were doing, but they basically hit Qatar, which has been the place where Hamas leaders have been living. Very high on the hog, by the way, in Doha for many, many years. There was supposed to be some peace talks going on, some negotiations for a possible ceasefire. Israel said they were retaliating for the shooting deaths of 6 of their citizens in Jerusalem earlier this week. So, you know, the world is certainly not a particularly peaceful place right now, but we'll keep you updated on everything that's happening as it happens, and we'll tell you, of course, what's going on. British Farming Day coming up as well. 0344 499 1000 is the number. This is Morning Glory. It's the only place to be. We'll be back after the news.
My message to people smugglers is this.
How much, ladies and gentlemen, are fish and chips where you come from? We'll go to Jason in Crewe.
Jason from Crewe, fish, chips and peas, £7.50. The best chippy in England.
Janice in Leeds, go.
Regarding fish and chips in Leeds, it's between £9.50 and £12.75.
Whitby, how much is fish and chips?
3 of us, fish, chips, peas, I think one of us curry sauce, 3 cans of pop, just short of 70 quid.
£70? That's 23 quid a head, man. Even my maths does that. Very quickly, a voice note. Campbell in Scotland, go.
Up here in Banff in the northeast of Scotland, we can get a fillet and a half of haddock with a regular chips for £8 and 10 pence, and it's by far and away one of the best chippies I've ever had.
Kenneth in Surrey, fish and chips, go.
Fish and chips in Ascot, about half a mile from where you used to live, will cost you £12 and 60 pence. Great show. Keep up the good work.
That's why I moved, because you were living there. When was the last time you had fish and chips?
Couple of weeks ago.
How much? Where'd you get it from?
I think it was about 40 quid. It was in the Ivy.
Honestly, you really are. For any of you who think he's a man of the people, I nearly said you're a...
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 3 minutes past 8. I'm Mike Graham. It is, of course, Wednesday the 10th of September, and we are rocking and rolling, ladies and gentlemen. There's a lot going on this morning. On the front page is Peter Mandelson in a bathrobe. I kid you not. You may wish to exercise parental discretion when you look at this over the breakfast table. But why in God's name did our bathrobe-clad ambassador to Washington fawn over a wicked paedophile who called him Petey? Because he's sitting, of course, with one and only Jeffrey Epstein, the convicted paedophile, now dead, of course, who apparently was one of his best pals, according to Peter Mandelson. He called him his best pal, said he loved him, said it was absolutely yum to go and visit his place in Pedo Island, and had a wonderful time there, even staying at his house in New York, while Jeffrey Epstein was serving time in prison for apparently soliciting an underage child for sex. Peter Mandelson, of course, knew that he was in prison for soliciting an underage child for sex, but he went there anyway. Front page of the Daily Telegraph has the same picture. Wherever he is in the world, he remains my best pal, is the signed piece of paper that is published by them. They've also got the same picture of him in a bathrobe. It also says Jeffrey Epstein brokered a deal with Lord Mandelson over the sale of a UK taxpayer-owned banking business after he had been convicted of child sex offences. We'll be playing you an exclusive interview with Peter Mandelson coming up later on in this hour. It turns out that last night Tories have demanded an investigation into Lord Mandelson's close friendship and any commercial dealings with Jeffrey Epstein. They will want to know if Epstein, who banked with JP Morgan and was one of its wealthiest clients, profited from the deal. Labour MPs are also privately calling for Lord Mandelson to resign because of the potential damage done to the UK's reputation in the United States. And this, of course, comes just about a week before the state visit by the President of the United States, Donald Trump, to the United Kingdom. So there's all sorts of scandal there. Absolutely extraordinary stuff. Front page of The Sun goes with an exclusive about Greg Wallace. He's going to sue the BBC, apparently, because he wants to have access to a whole bunch of documents and papers, hundreds of pages, which he believes will clear his name, will enable him to recoup millions and millions of pounds that he's lost as a result of being wrongfully fired. He says basically that he suffered from a disability, which was his neurodiverse situation, and they should have given him more help. He says he was autistic, and they should have not put him in danger in the way that they did. Lots of other papers, of course, going with what happened in the Middle East last night. Israel risking Trump's wrath on the front page of the Times by hitting Hamas in Qatar. Same goes to the Telegraph. Donald Trump condemns Israeli airstrike on Qatar. We'll talk a bit about that as well. Also, apparently the migrants want to sue us now because we're not looking after them well enough. You know, down at Mandelson, which is the holding centre for them, they don't like going there. So 200 asylum seekers stroke illegal migrants are going to get lawyers to sue the government of Britain for compensation. You literally could not make it up. 0344 499 1000. We'll also play you some footage of Keir Starmer's first cabinet meeting, because he's got a new cabinet now since Friday, since Angela Rayner resigned, and he says he's not fixing the foundations anymore. He's raising up the... What is he doing? I might have to play it, actually. Let's play it and see what he's actually saying. Here he goes.
Hi colleagues, let me welcome you to this cabinet team and to the next stage of our journey as we move from the stage of fixing foundations now on to the stage of national renewal. And you are all here around this table, each and every one of you, because you're the right people for this stage of our journey. The right people, therefore, to focus on our priorities, which are economic growth and national renewal. And the right people to heed the patriotic call to lift up our country and take it forward to national renewal for millions of working people. And that focus on economic growth and national renewal is not one department or some departments, it's every department, it's everybody around this table. That is the priority of the government, because our mission is to deliver for working people.
Crikey, imagine having to sit through a couple of hours of that guff. So it's all about renewal, apparently. It's nice to know, isn't it? He's on a journey. He's on a journey. Let's talk to Esther McVeigh, who is, of course, former Minister for Common Sense, Tory MP. Esther, very good morning to you.
It's wonderful to be with you for this national renewal. We've fixed the foundation.
What's he talking about?
We're getting growth. We've got working people. I don't think he believed a word he was saying. They were just like words coming out of his mouth, weren't they? With mannerisms. He's been told to use Tony Blair mannerisms to show you meaning.
Oh, yeah. All of this stuff with the hands, you know, when he gets the hands together, holds the sort of the fingers like that. Poor old David Lammy looks very confused sitting there next to him on his left. I don't think you know.
Doesn't take much, Mike. Doesn't take much.
He's trying to work out why he hasn't got a cup with his name on it. Have you noticed that Starmer's got a mug with his own name on it?
Well, that's so everybody knows who he is.
Well, as somebody else pointed out, it's because they don't want to share any cup that he's got because of that cold sore they had the other day, but that's something else. But seriously...
Or they might want to call him by other names, so he's just reminding them the name to call him by.
I know. Seriously, though, he's in a terrible place, isn't he? I mean, Angela Rayner leaves the government on Friday. He obviously didn't want that to happen earlier in the week. They were desperately trying to keep her, but she couldn't rise above the scandal at the end of the day. He's now got, instead of her, a six-pack of women, all of whom have got some axe to grind against him, possibly with the exception of Bridget Phillipson. They all want to be deputy leader of the party. He can't control who gets it, and they've all got it in for him, and they've all got a knife to stick in his back, and he's got nowhere to go, has he?
Yeah, infamy, they've all got it in for me. Absolutely. The net is closing in on him. He's got so many people who dislike him in his cabinet, on his backbenchers, within the trade unions, within the membership, and he did a non-shuffle, reshuffle. He moved people around to different positions. And can I tell you, the only winner from that really are the civil servants, because he won't be in charge of what goes on now in government, because it takes such a long time to get to know a brief.
Yeah.
It will take you a year, maybe more. It's like doing a PhD. So I was in charge of the DWP. You've got 100,000 people who work for you, 750 job centre. You've got the benefits. You've got the pensions. You've got to understand what is wrong. How are you going to fix it? Is it possible? And because it's such a complicated set of law to go with it, actually, will you be able to merge it together so you can make sense of what you've got? So if you think you've just spent a whole year doing that, and now he's going to move people across willy-nilly, across so many departments, they won't be able to do the job. So the civil servants will be running it. And equally, it showed how weak he was as a leader. If somebody's doing a bad job, like David Lammy must have been, because he's taken him out of the Foreign Office there. Well, he sort of demoted him in one way to justice, but then promoted him to deputy leader. Then you've got Yvette Cooper, hasn't smashed the gangs. Her one in, one out was a disaster. That has not been happening. And yet what he does is move her to Foreign Office. So really, you can't make sense of what you've done, because you don't usually move somebody, promote them, if they can weave magic, and they're going to weave magic in another department and do some good. This isn't the case at all. And maybe what you usually do if you shuffle somebody to Foreign Office when you know you're under threat, it's because it's to get them out the country. It's a great position. Get rid of somebody. So maybe he's feeling a threat as well from Yvette Cooper. So that's what it says to me. He's being threatened by everybody. And now with the deputy leader, and so he's thrown his own person in there, Bridget Phillipson, because he needs a Starmer ally. He's in deep, deep trouble.
He really is. I mean, even apparently in the sort of the upper echelons of the back benches, they're talking about how to get rid of him. You know, I mean, I've been saying since last August he's not going to last. I don't think he's going to be able to have the abilities that he needs to be Prime Minister, and so it's proven. He has no prime ministerial skills whatsoever. He's got no management skills. It doesn't seem, his judgment seems to be off. It was only last week when he was in phase 2 of the new government, which nobody knew he was going to get into. He was moving people into Downing Street, costing us more money, more taxpayers' money going out for more specialists, more people who supposedly were experts in various different fields. He moved Darren Jones from the Treasury into Downing Street to make him the chief advisor, chief sort of secretary to the Prime Minister, you know, and all of that's been blown up again because on Friday he changed it all. And he tried, as you say, to move Ed Miliband, who said, I'm not going. So he's still running the net zero department, which apparently they're going to crack down on.
Though the public don't want any cracking down, never has the public been so sceptical about the con that is net zero. But really, his backbenchers, their concerns have very much been voiced by Emily Thornberry, who's also going for the deputy leader there, and she's saying no more mistakes. I mean, she's really going to be a thorn in his side. She thought she was going to get the role of Attorney General, and she was unceremoniously dumped to allow his good buddy, Lord Hermit, to get the job. So she's also out for revenge. But I think this bad luck or, you know, making mistakes, it's very interesting. I'm hearing people now saying, oh, he's a very unlucky leader. And I thought, no, he's out of his depth, hasn't got an idea about what policies he wants to do. But when people are talking about him being unlucky as well as making mistakes and being bad, you know his backbenchers want him out the way.
They really do. And one of the things that was being said as well yesterday was that he keeps coming up with these new sort of slogans. You know, he keeps resetting things and kind of re-arming himself and now rearranging the cabinet and claiming that this is now, you know, a different way of doing things. He's talking about renewal. You know, before this, he's been talking about missions. You know, 5 missions for a better Britain. This is from earlier this year. Make Britain's streets safe. How's that going? Not so good. Breaking down the barriers to opportunity at every stage. Not really. Building an NHS fit for the future. Yesterday we found out that 4 out of 5 hospitals are failing and 2 GP surgeries a week are closing. Make Britain a clean energy superpower. Well, I have to refer you to my good friend Jürgen Meyer, the head of GB Energy. I'm not quite sure. We haven't seen him for a while. I presume he's taken a long summer holiday. And secure the highest sustained growth in the G7. Also not true. They had higher growth than other countries in G7 at the start of the year, but thanks to Rachel Reeves and her new fiscal policies in April, that was all killed off.
I mean, for me, he'd never be a prime minister for any time in history, but he certainly isn't now. And he looks confused all the time because he thought he was coming in as this internationalist, and that's what he was going to be. And actually, it's a time where people are talking about the nation, they're talking about the sovereignty. He also wants to talk about net zero, climate change, what he was going to do, hence his buddy Ed Miliband's there. Actually, never has a nation been so sceptical about this con of net zero. He wanted to talk about refugees are welcome here. We're an open, tolerant place. We're a sanctuary nation. And people say, no, this is not fair anymore. You've opened the borders. You've let people in. You're treating people who've broken into our country better than you're treating us. So I think he's scratching his head because all of his beliefs that he's had all of his life just do not hold, and they particularly don't hold now when people are concerned about crime, not as he is, non-crime hate incidents and hurty words. He's just concerned about completely the wrong issues. Never has a man been so out of touch and out of his depth.
Yeah. It's absolutely shambolic and quite shocking, actually, that a man can spend as long in politics as he has and at the top of a legal profession as the head of the Crown Prosecution Service and be this useless. I mean, no wonder the justice system's in tatters if he was running it for several years, because we're obviously still feeling his legacy. But let me ask you about Peter Mandelson in a moment. Before I do, I'm going to play this exclusive clip. This is from a new show that we're doing here at Talk. Harry Cole Saves the West, it's called. He's relocated himself over to the United States of America, and this is him on Peter Mandelson.
One, I feel a tremendous sense, a profound sense of sympathy for those people, those women who suffered as a result of his behaviour and his illegal criminal activities. And secondly, I regret very, very deeply indeed carrying on that association with him for far longer than I should have done. And I regret very much that I fell for his lies. I fell and accepted assurances that he had given me about his indictment, his original criminal case in Florida. Like very many people, I took at face value what he said. With hindsight, with fresh information, many years later, we realized that we had been wrong to believe him. He's a charismatic criminal liar. we now see. And I regret very much indeed, I felt it like an albatross around my neck since his death in 2018 or 19 when it was. I feel a tremendous sense of regret, not only that I met him in the first place, but that I continued the association, and I took at face value the lies that he fed me and many others.
So that's Peter Mandelson talking exclusively to Harry Cole on his new show, Harry Cole Saves the West. The full interview is available on YouTube. Is it available now? Yeah, it's available now. But you can watch it whenever you like. Right now, though, it's 18 minutes past 8. Let's get Esther McVeigh's view on that. Esther, it's quite an extraordinary thing for him to say, because according to the papers this morning, Epstein was in prison for solicitation of a minor when Lord Mandelson, who at the time was business secretary in the UK government and effectively deputy prime minister, he stayed in Epstein's New York mansion. Now, he's saying there, I accepted his assurances about what he said. Well, hang on, he was already in prison.
Look, this is deeply, deeply unsavoury. He says he fell for his lies. He fell for his lies, his accommodation, his hospitality, his business dealings. There's a lot that he fell for. He was known as Petey. He was doing business deals with him on behalf of the government, and there's now questions whether it was on behalf of anybody else or what that was about with the Sempra Energy deal, the RBS, and JP Morgan. But this will need to be investigated. And I thought it was a very interesting question that Gavin Williamson, another Conservative MP, asked Art Starmer. He said, was he properly vetted by you before he was given the job? And do you believe that Lord Mandelson's conduct and association with a convicted paedophile was to be in line with the requirements of the Diplomatic Service Code? And that's quite right. And again, it goes back to Starmer's bad judgment. Look who he's got in his cabinet. Also, it shows how thin the layer of people are in this Labour government, that he had to go back and dig somebody up who, by the way, hasn't just had one sort of scandal, two, had to stand down from government several times. He is drawn, is Peter Mandelson, like a moth to a flame for people with money and power. We had Jeffrey Robinson, we had the Hinduja brothers, we also had Alec Deripaska there. So we've got a whole host of previous incidents that he's come under scrutiny and had to stand down from the government. I'm afraid this is another shameful incident in a very, very colourful past that Mandelson's had, and I do believe he has to stand down from that position.
Yes, because, I mean, we've got the state visit of Donald Trump coming next week. Highly embarrassing to have the UK ambassador to the United States embroiled in this ghastly story. You know, and pictures of him sitting in a bathrobe with Epstein on his private island, which was known as Pedo Island. They were clearly very good mates. He calls him his best pal. You know, he's written several sort of cryptic notes and nudge, nudge, wink, wink, kind of, you know, little statements here and there. I don't see how he can hang on. And it's more scandal for Keir Starmer, really.
Oh, absolutely. And I don't think on the back of your Deputy Prime Minister not paying the right amount of stamp duty. So you're asking the whole of the nation to pay more in property taxes, and yet she's trying to limit hers. You've got scandal after scandal. The corruption minister who asked questions over corruption in Bangladesh. I mean, you've got a whole host of problems there. There's another thing I would just throw out, and it was very interesting, this relationship, isn't it? Ghislaine Maxwell. What was her job with Epstein? Why did she do a 280-page book for his 50th birthday? It seemed to me they were collecting evidence. Was it to blackmail people? They were getting photographs, they were getting words, it was like an alibi. This gets murkier and murkier and murkier and murkier. And when you hear what people say, there was always, always a photograph, they were always trying to capture images of people. Again, they were trying to gather around themselves, weren't they? Powerful people. And I'm afraid somebody like Mandelson should have been a little bit more on his toes, a little bit more wondering what was going on. And it wasn't a friendship for a week or two. This was decades, this relationship appears to have gone over. He didn't just see him at a business meeting, he was staying for a week on his island. Yeah. Oh, come on, we can all see through this tissue of lies from Mandelson.
Yeah. Absolutely right. Esther, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Esther McVeigh, MP for the Tories and former Minister for Common Sense, of course, saying that, Peter Mandelson should step down. Lord Mandelson. Should he have his peerage taken away? That's another possibility as well. 0344 499 1000. Gribbo in Westerham says, so we're not allowed to call Mandelson Mandy, but he let a convicted pedo call him Petey. Says a lot. Unbelievable stuff, isn't it? Morning Mike, says Peter in Suffolk. If Starmer has fixed the foundations, how come the UK is now suffering from severe subsidence? Good question. Let's get a voice note from Andy.
Morning Mike, Andy from Hull here. Just listening to Starmer's rousing little round-the-table speech this morning. I think somebody needs to ring Farm Foods and let them know that there's a middle manager missing that won't turn up for his shift today. It's just how uninspiring was that? I've worked in meetings, sat in meetings with managers and have sat and talked and earned 25 grand a year, and this guy's earning what? And he's in a position of power like that, and he can't even speak to his cabinet properly. He's just a twonk, for want of a better word. Have a good day, Mike. Bye.
Andy, it's hard to disagree, isn't it? Charles in Thailand says Lemmy hasn't got a mug with his name on it. He wouldn't be able to read it anyway. One from somebody who doesn't give a name. The resurrection of a golden oldie. Oh, Mandy, you came and you gave without asking. Wasn't it taking? Barry Manilow was great. Yeah, he was. 24 minutes past 8.
the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 8:27. Coming up to 10 o'clock, of course. Alex Phillips will be coming in to take us on to the next 3 hours. We've got plenty to do, though. We're talking about Keir Starmer having his own mug. And we said, did he have his own peg in his clothing locker as well? It's a bit like being at school. Louise says, does Keir have his own peg as well? I bet he's the classroom monitor, too. I feel like I'm in a parallel universe and someone pressed the joke button, only it's not funny. Off to sink some gin. Good idea. Bradley says, Mike, could you please explain to us what Starmer means by national renewal? What is the clown on about? And somebody answers it by saying, I'm assuming it's like one of those Windows updates, right, where everything gets a little bit more fiddly. You have to log on to all your favourite things again, but with longer, more annoying passwords, and everything seems a bit off. That's it. That's the new phase, isn't it? Everything's just that little bit worse, that little bit more complicated, that little bit more expensive, takes a little bit longer, nothing really works at all. That's where we are. Let's talk to Tom Bradshaw, President of the National Farmers Union, because we need to check in with our friends who are backing Farming Day, British Farming Day 2025. Let's get an update on where we are. Tom, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
Good to talk to you. Where exactly are we with the negotiations with the government? Has anything changed since the last time I spoke to you?
Well, I think that we've obviously had a major reset right the way across Whitehall, Mike, and really the test now is, do the government want a meaningful reset with the farming industry? We've got so much to offer the whole of society. A safe, secure supply of affordable British food is something that matters to everybody. Yeah. We know that 89% of the public want more British food produced by our farmers in this country, and we need the government to back that, and they need to start by having a meaningful conversation around the proposals to inheritance tax, because we know that the family farm tax is going to have a devastating impact on family businesses right the way across the United Kingdom.
Yeah, and from memory of the last time we spoke, the problem here lies sort of with the Treasury's calculations, doesn't it? They've sort of calculated it, in your view, wrongly, that people with quite large farms and making, which are worth quite a lot of money, are not actually making much money profit-wise, and so putting a tax on that sort of inheritance is quite frankly uneconomical.
It is uneconomical, it's unaffordable for those farmers that are producing this country's food. And the crux of the issue is that they're taxing business assets that produce the food that everybody needs as though they're personal wealth. And that's what we really struggle with right the way across the business community, is effectively this inheritance tax is a levy on business and a levy on small family business, and that just simply cannot be right. So there's been a recent proposal by a left-leaning think tank called Centax that comes up with some recommendations that could mitigate the worst of the impacts. It's far from perfect, but if the government is serious about a reset, then they need to look very hard at those proposals.
Right. Is there any light in a chink of light in the tunnel at all about any new changes of personnel around the reshuffle last week?
Well, we've got a new Secretary of State in DEFRA, Secretary of State Reynolds, who's come out of one of the Treasury departments, so clearly has good connections into Treasury, hopefully with a real economic focus as well, and so that we can look at how we can drive the economic growth that this country so desperately needs. And so that there's maybe a chink of light there. We do have a new farming minister, but then obviously within Treasury there's been a change of ministers as well. And within Number 10, there's been quite a major reshuffle there with Darren Jones moving into the team in Number 10. And we're hearing this morning about a business board looking at how they can unlock the opportunities that exist. And yesterday we had the whole of the food industry here in London together, looking at the key changes that can be made to policy to really unlock the potential to have a more resilient food industry, which at the time of this massive geopolitical upheaval around the world, time of climate change taking hold, we really need to invest in British food production so that we have that secure supply of food for the next decade and beyond. And that starts with the government rebuilding the confidence of the industry.
Yeah, well, I mean, Starmer had his first cabinet meeting with the new lot yesterday, in which he talked about renewal in the country, and he talked about basically creating an atmosphere for growth. You know, and you can take that in any number of different ways, but we don't have it at the moment. Have a look at what he said to farmers in 2023.
Every day seems to bring a new existential risk to British farming. Losing a farm is not like losing any other business. It can't come back. That's why the lack of urgency from the government, the lack of attention to detail, the lack of long-term planning It's not on. You deserve better than that.
Yeah, well, why does he put his money where his mouth is then?
Look, that's the opportunity, isn't it, Mike? That he clearly understood back 2 years ago what the issues were. And if he was to rewatch that speech today, he maybe feels that the government could do and need to do a better job. There are sectors of our industry that are absolutely on its knees, that can't afford to invest for the future, and that need the government to value the job that farmers do, which is producing this country's food. And there's nothing more important than that for society. So we see this reset across Whitehall as a real opportunity for the government to say they're going to take a different course, for them to hit that reset button, but with a meaningful change which recognises the value of the food and farming industry. We're our biggest manufacturing sector in this country. Over 4.2 million jobs, over 150 billion to the economy, all underpinned by the raw ingredients that farmers produce. And that is such an opportunity to unlock growth in every constituency across the United Kingdom, which so far there hasn't been any meaningful action from this government to unlock that opportunity.
So British Farming Day today, what are you hoping for people to do to celebrate it?
Look, the public have been overwhelmingly supportive. We did a poll which we're releasing the evidence or the data from today. 92% of people feel that it's important that we have a productive farming sector. Farmers are the second most valued profession for the third year in a row after only nurses. And we all know how important our nurses are. And this overwhelming public support is something which we don't take for granted. But I'm sure farmers across the country really value that public support today. We also know that 2/3 of the public support our argument with the government around the inheritance tax proposals and would like to see the government change course. Now, that's an overwhelming level of support for what is such a controversial tax area. And so at this moment in time, while the government may not have recognised the value of their farmers, the public certainly do, and we really value that public support, and we can hope that we can turn it into meaningful action with the government.
Thank you very much indeed. Tom Bradshaw, President of the National Farmers Union, on National Farming Day for 2025, which is today. It's 8:34. Someone might be onto a growth industry there if he puts the cabinet members' names on their mugs. Then when he loses his next minister or reaches phase 4 next week, they can order in a lot more mugs for the new mugs. And David says, from Cheadle, I can imagine them having an inquiry if somebody stole his mug. Yes. Let's get a voice note from Tony.
Morning, Mike. Tony from North Somerset. I keep hearing you playing the Two Tiers expression of fixing the foundations. He's not fixing any foundations. I reckon he'll be next up on Cowboy Builders on the BBC, along with cowboy programming run by Tim Davey. Keep on the good work, mate.
Tony, brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. Yeah, let's get him a show. Kieran the Cowboys. Why not indeed? 8:35.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 8:37. I'm Mike Graham. Up north, says Andy in Mansfield, we really feel your pain with the tube strikes and the bus strikes. It must be horrible having to suffer from Sadiq's carnage. You can have that one on me. Thanks, Andy. It's very kind of you to be sympathetic. One for message from Mike Graham. Starmer always talks about fixing the foundations, but what has actually been fixed? He never provides any detail of any fixes. It's the same with all Labour MPs. It's all words and sound bites and slogans that mean nothing. Well, this is the thing. I mean, looking at some of the stuff he came out with earlier in his premiership, we spoke before about the various missions that he wanted to have. Then he's got another thing called My First Steps, which were deliver economic stability, cut NHS waiting times, launch a new border security command, my favourite, set up a great British energy, crack down on antisocial behaviour, recruit 6,500 new teachers. Well, they haven't done any of that. Let's move on to milestones, shall we? Raising living standards in every part of the United Kingdom, so working people have more money in their pockets. Not really. Building 1.5 million homes in England and fast-tracking planning decisions? Not really. Ending hospital backlogs to meet the NHS standard of 92% of patients in England waiting no longer than 18 weeks? Nope. Giving children the best start in life, so 75% of 5-year-olds in England are ready to learn when they start school. Bit nebulous, really. Securing homegrown energy to help protect bill payers while also accelerating the UK to net zero. Well, prices have gone up again, haven't they? And putting police back on the beat with a named officer for every neighbourhood so you feel safer in your community. Yeah, his name's PC Plod, and I'm afraid he can't come around to see because he's too busy checking people's Twitter account to see if he needs to arrest anyone for a hate crime or a non-crime hate crime. Let's get a voice note from Tim.
Tim in West Yorkshire here. Up at 4:15 this morning to go out and drive the wagon. Got to keep these illegal migrants in the luxury they're accustomed to. Just wanted to say the little clip you played of Starmer talking to his cabinet there, he said to them, I'd like you to regard us as a whole. Yeah, we all regard you as wholes, souls. Thanks, Mike. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bit harsh for this time of the morning, but there we are. Can't argue with it, really, can you? It's 8:40. Let's talk to Jack Elson, political editor at The Sun. Jack, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
Very well indeed. A bit of nostalgia for me this morning. I mean, you're probably too young to remember the Tory campaign poster for 1979 when Margaret Thatcher swept to victory. Labour isn't working. A fabulous piece in The Sun by Leo McKinstry. It was famously a sort of a snaking queue of people queuing at the unemployment office. And basically Leo's saying it's a startling image from 1979, but it's starting to look a bit like that now.
Yeah, totally, and it can be applied to the modern day. I think alongside the small boats crisis, welfare is probably the biggest scandal facing this government. It doesn't get as much pick up because it's not as visible, but it is equally as damaging to our country. He talks about it in the piece. We have about 6.5 million people on some kind of out-of-work benefits, and sickness benefits alone is set to balloon to about £100 billion by the end of the Parliament. And, you know, it is just so bad for our economy, not just the sheer cost of this, but also it means that if we have, you know, more Brits on the dole, it means that we have to import more migrants, then our population keeps expanding. And also, in terms of just the morale, it is such a drain on morale for the actual working people of this country, seeing the dole queue get ever longer and then going out to work. You know, your viewer just then talked about getting up at 4 in the morning. He's setting his alarm clock incredibly early to go out and do a hard day's graft and subsidising people that don't do anything. And, you know, Keir Starmer, we learn that he's going to have another stab at cutting the welfare bill. You'll remember that he bottled £5 billion of welfare cuts, pretty a drop in the ocean, to be honest. You know, in terms of how actually welfare is going to go up. He bottled that a few months ago amid a backbench rebellion. Hopefully he manages to get it through because, you know, he cannot sacrifice the economic well-being of this country over to the hands of a few left-wing backbenchers. And so hopefully this time he manages to actually drive some cuts through.
Well, that would be good. But the trouble is, of course, an awful lot of people say to me that in terms of the way the benefits culture works, it's probably, unless you're going to get a better paid job than, say, minimum wage job, you're actually better off on benefits. And that's part of the problem, isn't it? Because there's no incentive to get a job if you're better off on benefits.
Yeah, and this was really sort of the reforms that Ian Duncan Smith tried to champion when he was welfare secretary. He said that nobody should be better off on benefits than in work. And, you know, there's been many studies since Centre for Social Justice, there's some great studies showing that actually there are still lots of people and there are lots of ways that actually you can be better off on benefits than in work. And that is just a principle which I think that nobody would agree with, and that if you go to work, get up in the morning and do a day's shift, then you should be better compensated than if you don't. Obviously, there are going to be people that just cannot work, people with crippling disabilities. And, I think we are a compassionate nation and no one would say that they shouldn't have a comfortable life. But for the people that actually don't have any requirement to look for work whatsoever, because they for all sorts of reasons, that list is growing. And I think that we have to actually be upfront about the fact that since the pandemic, claims of mental health have just gone absolutely through the roof. And a lot of the cases are over the phone consultations with GPs, because we haven't really got back to face-to-face consultations since the pandemic. And there's some reports out recently that more than 90% of fit note requests are just signed off willy-nilly with no kind of actual proper verification and checks whatsoever. And so this is where we're getting to a point now where we have more people out, more and more people going out of work, less of a working age population, and it's really drained on the economy and the morale of the working people of the country.
Well, that's the thing. It becomes a two-tier system. You get a smaller and smaller number of people providing tax for those who are getting bigger and bigger, who don't provide anything at all to the centre of the state. And so it's sort of economically unsustainable, which is why he quotes from Lord Stuart Rose, the former head of Marks and Spencer's, basically saying that we're on the edge of a crisis.
Yeah, totally. I mean, Stuart Rose yesterday, former boss of M&S, was absolutely withering about the government. And often what he's doing is echoing all of these sort of studies and reports we get from the city and from industry. Every single day it comes out, and less people are hiring. More people are being laid off because the economy is really being pushed to breaking point. And what is really quite distressing, I think, to a lot of businesses at the moment is that they feel that Rachel Reeves is going to come back for even more in a few months' time at the budget, because she's really boxed herself in now. She hasn't got that much fabled growth that she bet the house on in her first few months, because growth still has been pretty anemic. She says she can't borrow anymore, and I think that's probably a good thing. She's saying she's sticking to her fiscal rules because no one wants to see borrowing go up anymore, because then our debt interest gets even higher. She isn't doing any sort of serious cuts in the economy to the point where actually, you trim the fat and so you make savings. And so the only thing she's really left with to get that green tick from the OBR, which she really wants so badly, is tax rises. She's ruled out taxes on income tax, VAT, national insurance, although they did that before the election, obviously still went ahead with it. And so the only thing left really is businesses. And, for a time when you're trying to get that growth, it's just going to be incredibly damaging. And also, you will know as well as anyone, taxing businesses doesn't mean that workers are immune to that. Workers pay the price a lot of the time for it, and consumers pay the price. So, it's really quite distressing.
It really is. There's no real light at the end of the tunnel either. Jack, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Jack Elser there, political editor at The Sun, giving us his view on Leo McKinstry's piece in The Sun today. Labour isn't working. Starmer stuck in a doom loop. And it says it wasn't then and it isn't now. Labour is not working. Quite frankly, so many people in this country not doing anything worthwhile, not actually providing any money for the exchequer. And unfortunately, you've got a load of people like somebody called Claire Russell, who gave a recent newspaper interview in which she said 10 years ago she gave up work at the age of 46. Since then has lived off the disability benefits she receives for a bad back, as well as a substantial rental income from some property, plus a carer's allowance to look after her mother who lives 30 miles away. She says she's got a lovely life thanks to the great British taxpayer. Well, that's nice, isn't it? Nice for her. Lovely. She's probably not even up yet. It's 8:46. This is Talk.
What a disaster that would be. I'm sorry, but Emily Thornberry is just the biggest snob in British politics, as far as I can tell. We all remember when she sneered at White Van Man, who had his flag flying out his front room window. We all remember that she went around dressed up as the EU flag because she was so depressed that the working classes of this country dare to vote to leave the European Union. She looks down her nose at ordinary people.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham, coming up to very nearly 10 minutes to 9. I don't know where the time goes on this show. Moving from fixing the foundations to national renewal. What in God's name is he talking about? We have the world's first AI Prime Minister, says Rich in South Derbyshire. Morning, Mike. If I wanted waffle for breakfast, I would have headed for the kitchen, not listening to Bloody Star and his spewing of words. That's what Hev has to say. We'll come back to more of your messages in a moment. Right now, though, it's time for 90 minutes in 90 seconds.
90 minutes in 90 seconds.
From the Sun.
And it's time to say very good morning to Catherine Walsh, Manchester reporter for The Sun. Catherine, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike.
Belgrade A, it says on the back page. Tuchel boys actually get 5 goals. Remarkable result, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was definitely the best England performance under Thomas Tuchel since he took charge of England a year ago after Gareth Southgate left. There's been a lot of talk about England potentially not being an exciting team to watch. They're lacklustre. There's no free-flowing football, and they really turned that around last night against probably the hardest opponents in their group.
Because this was the game that everyone said might be the one that would trip them up, and in fact it was quite the reverse.
Yeah, so Serbia, that stadium is a really hard place to go. It's notoriously atmospheric, loud, long tunnels. It's a typical European ground, very hard to play in. So England, yeah, as you say, that was supposed to be the banana skin, as you say. But now moving forward, I suppose it's a big selection headache for Thomas Tuchel, with a lot of injuries to Bukayo Saka, Jude Bellingham, Cole Palmer. These are all, starting players that will hopefully try and get back into the team, but they won't necessarily be able to so quickly.
No, but I mean, all round a pretty good international break, I suppose you might say, even though the Andorra thing was a bit boring.
Yeah, definitely 5 different goal scorers, and last night's performance, Elliot Anderson has been the breakthrough star for England this international break. So a lot of players that have been called up after injuries to, big stars, and they've really shone.
Yeah, quite nice time to report on England then for a change, because it hasn't always been like that. Ange Postecoglou back in the Premier League as well, coming to Nottingham Forest.
Yep, so Ange has been hired quite quickly by Forest to take over from Nuno Espirito Santo after he fell out with the owner. It was writing on the wall from then. 3 weeks ago, he publicly said that he'd fallen out with the owner, and Marinakis is a no-nonsense guy. He doesn't take to that thing sort of well, so he knows Ange Postecoglou quite well. He awarded him a special award for being the first Greek manager to win a European trophy when he led Spurs to Europa League glory back in May. So he is someone that he would trust to take Forest into Europe this season as they're playing in the Europa League. So yeah, watch this space.
Watch this space indeed. Good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Catherine Walsh, Manchester reporter at The Sun. That was 90 minutes in 90 seconds.
90 minutes in 90 seconds.
From The Sun.
Couple more notes for you here. Someone must have attended the Camilla Harris School of Word Salad, says Mick. And David Doncaster says, this national renewal, not one department, but all departments. Does that mean every government department will now race to mess up all at the same time, instead of in stages? Well, it's a good question. Very good question indeed. Front pages this morning, of course, many of them are taken up with the story from Qatar yesterday. Daily Telegraph goes with Trump condemns Israeli airstrike on Qatar. Attack on Doha kills Hamas leader's son. Shatters hope of diplomatic end to the war. And Israel risks Trump's wrath by hitting Hamas in Qatar, is what it says on the front page of the Times. Let's just see what Donald Trump had to say about it.
I'm not thrilled about the whole situation. It's not a good situation. But I will say this, we want the hostages back, but we are not thrilled about the way that went down today. I'm never surprised by anything, especially when it comes to the Middle East.
Let's talk to Daniel Rubinstein now, former aide to Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel. Daniel, very good morning to you.
Good morning to you.
Thanks very much indeed. Trump says he's not thrilled about it. He was informed about it, as far as we understand. Benjamin Netanyahu quite happy to say that it was a sort of a lone operation organised and carried out by Israel, nobody else. What's been the reaction in Israel?
In Israel, we are still waiting for confirmation of the results of this strike. But one thing is very clear, and it is that the leaders of the Hamas terrorist army, the masterminds of the October 7th massacre, the people who were sitting in Doha, Qatar, and celebrating as their army massacred Israelis, took toddlers and grandmothers hostage. These people are not safe anywhere, anytime. It's been over 700 days since the October 7th massacre, and the Hamas terrorist army has refused to surrender, refused to release the hostages, refused even a very high ransom payment, and the Qatari royal family has been protecting these Hamas leaders the whole time. So Israel has sent a very clear message that we are watching, and we are not going to allow the Hamas leaders to escape the crimes that they have committed.
Are you surprised that some Western leaders, including Sir Keir Starmer in the UK, have condemned the attack, but they haven't actually ever condemned, as far as I'm aware, Hamas sort of leaders being sheltered, if you like, by the Qatari regime?
I'm disappointed, but I'm not at all surprised by the reaction of many world leaders. Some of them are just trying to placate a domestic constituency. Some of them want to sound relevant. They say what they feel like they have to say. I'm very much focused on life in Israel. Just the other day, Hamas terrorists massacred Israelis waiting to board a bus. So we understand that this war is continuing. It's not just what happened on October 7th, it's what happened every day since.
Yeah, and Mohammed Abbas was here earlier this week when that incident actually happened, strangely enough. And this week, I believe, Israeli President Isaac Herzog is going to be seeing Keir Starmer in Downing Street as well. What will his message be?
I think his message will be that the Hamas terrorist army needs to surrender and release the hostages, and that this war, which we don't want, this war will end faster if the entire international community, the US, the UK, France, Germany, all of these countries that claim to be part of a Western alliance, should say with a very clear voice that the Qatari royal family should turn over the Hamas leadership, extradite them for war crimes and crimes against humanity.
Yeah. And was there a ceasefire conversation going on? I mean, if so, was anybody from Israel actually there in Qatar yesterday?
There have been so-called ceasefire negotiations going on for more than 700 days. Hamas has dragged out these conversations because it's very clear that Hamas does not want to release all of the hostages. Hamas wants to hold hostages forever so that it can protect itself from the consequences of the October 7th massacre. Hamas pretended to be interested in negotiations. The Qatari royal family sided with Hamas the entire time. We have hostages in Gaza right now who are being held in tunnels underground. They're being tortured and starved for more than 700 days. Time is up. It is time to pressure the Hamas terrorist army to surrender and release the hostages.
Daniel Rubinstein, thank you very much indeed, former aide to Benjamin Netanyahu there, speaking to us from Israel. As we say, Isaac Herzog, the Israeli president, due to meet Keir Starmer in Downing Street today. So we'll bring you details on that as and when it happens, of course. Steve says, watching Starmer Liars, that's a new one. Starmer Liars addressed to his super new cabinet. I'm lost for words. Well, principal ones anyway. The most polite one I can use is moron. Paul says this from Horsham. Mike, great show. I was in Singapore a few days ago, used the underground system. It's clean, efficient and automated, so there's no drivers and there's no fare dodgers either. Yeah, well, I bet you that saves them an awful lot of money. And Graham says, surely the shortlist for Deputy Prime Minister breaches the Equality Act of 2010. It's an all-female list. Where is the diversity and inclusion? Direct discrimination, surely. Well, you would think so, but you see, when you're a champagne socialist, it doesn't matter if you have discrimination, because you can always argue away and say that it's actually not discrimination at all, it's positive discrimination. That's how you do it. One thing no one has mentioned, says Ginny, is how come all these migrants have got driving licences for delivery bikes and cars when there's a huge backlog for tests for legal Brits? They're either bypassing the queue yet again or driving around uninsured with no licence. This country annoys me right off at the moment. Yeah, I know. Good morning, Mike. Great show this morning. It's absolutely astounding to watch this cabinet meeting with Keir Starmer talking rubbish and making out like the whole of the British people are behind him. If he only knew. And as for Lunchbox Lammy sitting next to him, probably thinking everyone thinks he's a mastermind. On the positive side, at least Starmer spent a whole week in England for once. Cheers, says John in Bournemouth. Well, actually, he did go to Scotland. I know that doesn't necessarily count. He stayed within the British Isles, but he went to see the King, didn't he, up in Balmoral? There were pictures of him walking around with Lady Starmer, who only occasionally goes with him on his trips. I guess she wouldn't miss out on that one, though, would she? Fancy going to see the King, darling? Yeah, why not? It sounds a lot better than schlepping around Downing Street with all those new aids you've got. Absolutely ridiculous. Coming up in the next hour, Richard Holden's going to join us. Nadine Dorries is here, and Julia Athley from The Sun with an amazing story about Mike.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to 3 minutes past 9. The sun is up, ladies and gentlemen. It is, of course, Wednesday the 10th of September. It's a big, big day in the news business today. We're covering all sorts of things happening, including the breaking news coming in from Poland. Basically, a load of drones were shot down after they ventured in from Russia into Polish airspace. We're keeping an eye on that. NATO also keeping an eye on it, of course, and we'll bring you any details as they emerge through the course of the morning. The Poles are saying that it was a deliberate incursion into their airspace, so it does mark a slightly different manoeuvre by the Russians in the most recent days. We'll talk about that coming up in a little while. Also, of course, a lot of front pages all about the Qatar situation yesterday. More of the front pages, though, concerned with the situation with Peter Mandelson, Lord Mandelson, the UK ambassador to the United States of America, and his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, the convicted paedophile who, of course, committed suicide in prison, found dead in Manhattan in August 2019 while he was awaiting trial on sex trafficking charges. The front page of the Daily Mail says Mandelson on the rack over his best pal Epstein, because that's what he called him. He sent him a sort of 10-page birthday greeting, which wasn't so much a card as kind of a love letter. And their question says, why in God's name did our bathrobe-clad ambassador to Washington fawn over the wicked paedophile who called him Petey? It is quite a good question, that. As he's pictured in a bathrobe on Pedo Island, as it used to be known, which was, of course, the private island Jeffrey Epstein had down in Florida, just off the coast of Florida, where he used to entertain dignitaries from around the world, business leaders, etc., etc. Front page of The Sun, MasterChef host latest headache for telly bigwigs, and that is that Greg Wallace is going to sue the BBC. He says he wants the release of hundreds of pages of secret documents he reckons will help clear his name and help him claw back millions of pounds in lost earnings after he was booted out for inappropriate behaviour. BBC Director General Tim Davey says he's not sure there might not be any more scandals coming out. Goodness gracious me, 0344 499 1000. Meanwhile, more tube chaos in London. The union relations have completely collapsed with Sadiq Khan. Also, we'll be hearing about Britain's biggest HMO coming up in this hour. It's in Hull. It's a hotel, but basically it's being repurposed, we believe, to house migrants continually, but not as if they're in a hotel, simply as if they're in a house of multiple occupancy. We're also hearing that illegal migrants, 200 of them, are in line for millions of pounds worth of compensation. They're going to sue the government for keeping them in inhumane conditions. Can you believe it? So not only are we giving them shelter, not only are we giving them sanctuary after fleeing war and torture and all sorts of persecution, but they don't like it enough. It's not a nice enough place. So they're going to sue us. Brilliant. 5 minutes past 9. This is Talk. Margaret in Yorkshire says, Mike, can the UK seek reparations from all the countries who have allowed their people, illegal migrants, to invade the UK and cost the country a fortune? Well, it's a very good question, one that we will attempt to answer. Meanwhile, Margaret in Birmingham says, Starmer is such an embarrassment. Working people, journey. Which moron is writing this rubbish? Same moron writing Shabana Mahmood's. Mike, new broom, sweeps clean. Shabana, get yourself down to Dover. Well, they've got a new Home Secretary, but it's the same old nonsense, isn't it? Richard Holden's here, Shadow Transport Secretary. Richard, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike. How are you doing?
I'm very well indeed. I didn't realise it was raining. I see you holding an umbrella there. My condolences to you.
It is raining. It is raining temporarily, and so we've got showers.
Yes,
sunshine and showers. Here.
Showers. Well, thank you for the weather update. Keir Starmer's got a new cabinet. He spoke to them all yesterday. He talked about them fixing the foundations all over now. What we need to do now is renew the country. It's all about renewal. What's he talking about?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I mean, we've already seen, obviously, a real issue here with his reset. He's already having to sort of reset it once. He's going to try and reset it again. I think it's quite an important moment, though, I think, for Keir Starmer as he's looking at this. You know, we've seen some of his cabinet ministers be thrown to the side, other of them all reshuffled. I mean, for all this to happen within a year of him taking office is quite ridiculous, really.
Well, it really is. Because people are looking around at all of the things he says that he's doing, like the 1.5 million homes, the 1,700 jobs in defence, you know, the stopping of the migrants, the one in, one out thing. And it's all rubbish, isn't it? None of it's happening.
No, I mean, we can see that. When it turns to the Channel crossings, he said he'd smash the gangs. We know that crossings are up around 50% at the moment. We've seen, tragically, some more deaths in the Channel today because of the government's failure to have a proper deterrent scheme which would stop people from being attacked. I think there's so many different elements to this, though, so many different parts of failure from the government, and one of those today is obviously here in the capital, costing us 270 million quid every single day, the failure of the Labour Party to get a grip of the strikes, and that's costing everybody in the whole country, not just here in the capital.
Yeah, it is absolutely extraordinary. London's kind of being brought pretty much to a standstill. That idiot standing behind you there, Richard, so I'm just going to leave it there. Richard Holden, MP, Shadow Transport Secretary, thank you very much indeed for talking to us. He's down on College Green. I can't believe that bloke's still hanging around with his Brexit banners. What's wrong with him? Anyway, Nadine Dorries is here, former Tory minister, of course, friend of the station, defected to Reform UK just before their conference last weekend. Very good morning to you, Nadine.
Good morning, Mike.
Good to see you. How did you enjoy that conference? It was pretty amazing, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was really like something else. I absolutely enjoyed it. I don't know what I was expecting, but I'll tell you what it was like. It was like the Conservative Party conferences of days gone by, when members were involved and people were excited and were all joined together with a kind of like a central focus, which was to get into government. It was really quite exciting.
Yes. And are you sort of hopeful that you might return to the frontline fray, if you like, in that sense?
Well, I just wouldn't rule anything out. I mean, I never say never because that's silly. But I don't know, Mike, honestly, I have no idea.
Right. Well, there's a bit of time to go. Let's talk about Peter Mandelson. He's on the front pages. You might remember him from his time in the government of Tony Blair, which is when he started his relationship, it would seem, with Jeffrey Epstein. It's all very bizarre, and I don't see really how he manages to survive as ambassador to the US. Does he?
You know, it doesn't matter where you turn at the moment in the Labour Party or where you look, whether it's Peter Mandelson or it's Angela Rayner, it was Louise Haigh, it was Tulip Siddiq. It doesn't really matter where you look, it's failing. It's the individuals involved are just, you know, I'll tell you what somebody told me recently. They said to me, they're a Labour Party supporter, and they said this: we were supposed to be better than you lot, and it looks like we're going to be worse. Yeah. And I think that really, for me, encapsulated exactly what's happening in Labour, actually what's happening in both of those traditional parties of government, both Conservative and Labour. One is as bad as the other. Both are failing and have failed in a number of ways. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Mandelson's position, that creepy photograph of him sat in his dressing gown, where the card was shown next to him with Epstein. You've got it up there. That's just a vomit-inducing photograph. He sat with a paedophile, you know? Yeah. Of course, his position is now untenable.
Well, I think it is. Have a look at this, though, because Harry Cole, as you may know, has gone over to rebase himself in the United States of America. He's got a new show called Harry Cole Saves the West. Very modest name for a show, that. He got an exclusive.
Very modest for Harry.
He got a great exclusive, though, with Peter Mandelson, and here it is.
One, I feel a tremendous sense, a profound sense of sympathy for those people, those women who suffered as a result of his behaviour and his illegal criminal activities. And secondly, I regret very, very deeply indeed carrying on that association with him for far longer than I should have done. And I regret very much that I fell for his lies. I fell and accepted assurances that he had given me about his indictment, his original criminal case in Florida. Like very many people, I took at face value what he said. With hindsight, with fresh information, many years later, we realized that we had been wrong to believe him. He's a charismatic criminal liar, we now see. And I regret very much indeed, I felt it like an albatross around my neck since his death in 2018 or 19, when it was. I feel a tremendous sense of regret, not only that I met him in the first place, but that I continued the association, and I took at face value the lies that he fed me and many others.
He says he regrets it, but unfortunately the facts would suggest otherwise, because he spent time in his apartment in Manhattan, his townhouse, in fact, in Manhattan, while Epstein was in jail for trying to procure sex with a minor.
Yeah, I mean, it took a photograph of Mandelson in his dressing gown at Epstein's poolside, and the revelation of the notes and the cards that he sent to Epstein to get back and that apology and those regrets on camera to Harry Cole. I mean, it stinks, and that's what's wrong with politics today. There are no moral standards. He has to be caught out, like Angela Rayner has to be caught out before he issues the apology, or before he makes the claim that he has regrets about what he did. It's, you know, and also the bit about him staying in that apartment, we know from what we've heard about the Epstein case, those apartments, the walls were full of explicit hard porn artwork. Did he not? And the guy was in jail for an offence relating to it being a paedophile. Did he not put the two and two together? Did he not? I just find it unbelievable. Just unbelievable. Any decent person would think, no, I'm not staying in that guy's apartment. This artwork all over the walls tells me all I need to know. And the guy's in jail. No, I better get out of here.
Right. Well, one of the portions of the sort of rather bizarre card, 10-page card that he gave him for his birthday, was that, you know, it's so lovely when you're not here, you always leave such interesting friends. And there's a picture of a very young girl not wearing very many clothes.
Yeah, I mean, it says it all, doesn't he? What does Mandelson think he's doing? Trying to absolve himself in an interview with Harry Cole and say, it's a bit like Prince Andrew, isn't it? You know, trying to say to the world, oh, look, this wasn't me. I'm really sorry. I didn't know. It doesn't work. It doesn't cut it. You're the ambassador. You are a very senior politician. You're a very smart man. You knew exactly what was going on. Do the decent thing. Resign now. Will he? Of course he won't. He'll wait until the very last moment when he's actually pushed. Mandelson should go now. Yeah, I don't think there's anybody that would disagree with that, apart from possibly Keir Starmer, who'd rather you didn't talk about it. But let's go back to what you said last week in your column in the Mail, and when we talked about, you know, your transferring, if you like, or defecting to reform. You said the Tory party was dead. Do you think it's dead, unable to be resuscitated, or can it be brought back to life? But, you know, it's always been held up as a virtue by the Conservative Party and Conservative MPs, particularly the Wets, those on the left of the party, that the Conservative Party is a broad church. And frankly, evidence shows us that when you have a party which has MPs to the left and to the right, that you cannot govern, because those broad church words actually are just replacements for dysfunctional and divided. And divided parties just can't govern effectively. And that's what we've seen with the Conservative Party. Now, unless the Conservative Party changes it's the way it functions, unless it says to future candidates, we have to have a set of principles and ideology that you have to adhere to when you're an MP and vote for, then I'm afraid it is dead. It's impossible for the Conservative Party to function in its existing form. It is dead. It can't be a party of government, and that's a fact.
Well, I speak to so many people, obviously, as you know, on this show, who call themselves former Tory voters, who say, we'll just never vote for them again. And they often say to me, why do you even bother getting Tories on? You know, I mean, we've just had Richard Holden on. You're a nice enough guy, decent enough bloke, but, you know people say, well, what's the point of listening to them about anything? Because 14 years they were in, and they're largely responsible for a lot of the trouble that we now find ourselves in.
So I'll take Richard Holden as a case in point. You know, he's my PPS and I was Secretary of State. So I expect a certain standard behaviour from MPs. And, you know, Richard Holden fell way below that standard, that expected standard. He was party chairman. He waited till the last minute. He imposed himself on a constituency, gave them a choice of one, which was just him. They had no option but to take him. That is wrong. That is not the right way to behave. And I'm afraid in many MPs in the Conservative Party, if you look at the way they behave, it doesn't chime with what the public expect in terms of probity and standards from the people they elect as MPs. Now, Richard, you know, yeah, he's a very nice chap when you speak to him on a one-to-one, but he hasn't behaved in the way that he should as an MP, and that is the problem with politicians. So many don't.
Yes, and that is what people now see. I mean, you know, yesterday we were reporting on Ed Miliband having put a heat pump in his house in North London, but not in Doncaster, where he's still got a gas boiler. You know, I don't mind if he's got a gas boiler, but he apparently minds if I have one, because he wants me to get rid of mine. Not only has he got one, he's also charging me his electricity bill and his gas bill. And I'm going, well, what am I doing? Am I some kind of a mug? Why am I paying his bill as well as mine?
Exactly. It's the hypocrisy. And that's a quality which I think is running through both of what were the traditional parties of government, Labour and Conservative. It's hypocrisy. They're riven with it. That's why I defected to Reform. It's time to look to the future. It's time to look for answers as to what is going to happen to the country in the future. It's no longer good enough for us to rely on both Labour and Conservatives who have failed over and over again. I think it's time for a fresh start. As someone said to me at the weekend, it's time for a revolution in politics. And I couldn't agree more. That's where we are. It's time for a revolution. It's time for reform. And you've just put that thing up. I felt like an aged pop star walking out on
That was great. Do you know, I had to do a panel up there, right? And I had no idea it was going to be all sort of rock and roll and walking out onto a big stage. I thought it was going to be like the normal kind of, you know, boring party conference where you sit in a room which is a bit hot and kind of sweaty and you know, you're hoping it won't last too long before you can get out and get a drink. But it was really quite a remarkable event. And yeah, very uplifting for a lot of the people there, and they all seem to be very excited about it. They're all massive fans of this show and of Talk and everything else. You know, what they're not fans of, though, some of them, is having too many Tories jumping ship into Reform.
Well, I think I think, and I understand that completely, obviously, but they're not getting too many Labour supporters at the moment. They will do, and they are going to. And well, I shouldn't say that. I think they are getting a number of Labour supporters. What they're not getting is Labour defections in any numbers. But what I would say is, look to the future. Look to Nigel thinks that the election could come as soon as 2027, and he's quite right to think so. Without going down the economic arguments, that is a very feasible option that we could have an election that soon. But what I would say is this, that if Labour are splitting right down the middle, there will be almost two Labour parties. There'll be the pro-Gaza independence, who will align with probably Polanski, who's the new left-wing firebrand leader, Green Party, probably the breakaways, the Corbynites from the Labour Party. And there is going to, whether they will stand as two parties, I have no idea, but you will have that division in Labour. What we can't do is go into an election with the right divided, because if we do, then Labour will win. And it will be a far worse government next time than we've had this time. And I can't even bear the thought of that.
No.
So there will have to be some, and I'm almost nervous to say this because I know not a lot of Reform members are there yet, but there may have to be some kind of accommodation in the future. Now, will that look like 2019 when Reform stood down a number of candidates in Conservative seats so that the Conservatives could win? Well, I would say that possibly, but maybe if that happens next time, I'd be very careful which Conservative MPs that Reform stood their candidates down in. They would certainly not be Wets, certainly not be Remainers, certainly not be MPs on the left of the Conservative Party. And I would also say that a proper deal would need to be done, where if Reform stood down a candidate in a seat where there was an established Conservative, that Conservative, who was on the right side of the arguments, would have to pledge an allegiance to Reform in terms of how they would vote in the voting lobby in future. So I think there could be some kind of accommodation looking forward. But, you know, that is for the future. It isn't for now. But I really understand the concerns of some of those people in Reform. They're a new, emerging, exciting party. They have a chance to take power. And they want to take it on their own terms. And I totally get it. I support them, and I'll do everything I can to help them achieve that.
Because one of Nigel Farage's fears, I suppose, if you like, he revealed to Laura Kunsberg at the weekend when he said, you know, don't ask me about how we're going to do anything at the moment because we haven't got enough people. We don't have enough senior people at government level who've ever worked in government. We certainly haven't got as many serious candidates, perhaps, as they need to get. I think they need to get something like 5,000 candidates just for the local elections in May before they can attack all the places they want to go. So, I mean, in terms of if and when Reform do get in, you know, you've talked a lot about in your writings, you know, the blob, but also the establishment, the way that the Tory party kind of stitched people up in various ways, shapes and forms, the plot, as we know. Can they somehow overcome that, do you think, because they're not part of that establishment?
Look, I'm not going to say it's going to be easy. It isn't. It's going to be very difficult. The numbers alone are kind of like overwhelming almost. So, but they're running as fast as they can. And I think on a daily basis, Reform have got good people going into good jobs. And so, you know, I met the person who's responsible for candidates myself at conference. I think part of the reason why I'm there, he also, nobody can now throw the accusation at Nigel. You have nobody in Reform who's got any experience of government. I've served at every level of government and run a department. And I think that's where I see myself being able to lend my experience to Reform. It's the transition. It's the transition from being not even Her Majesty's opposition, but from being a small party in government to Westminster to being in government. That transition is hard enough if you're the party in opposition. That's where I see my own experience being able to help Reform, is making that, because it is complex. It is not just a case of take the keys to number 10 and barge in. Nigel would want to be successful from day one, would want to achieve from day one. So that's where I see myself lending my own expertise. And there will be others like me coming along. I am not going to be the only former cabinet minister who steps across to Reform.
Well, Jacob Rees-Mogg said, didn't he, at the weekend, that he would be happy to advise, although he wouldn't necessarily join Reform, he would be happy to advise what, you know, how they might want to deal with certain situations. But of course, a lot of people last weekend also said, well, you must be bringing Boris Johnson with you, obviously, because that would be why, which I think is a bit of an insult to you, actually, because I mean, you're not like sort of, you know, joined at the hip with him, are you?
No, and absolutely not. And I don't ever see, you know, and I saw this kind of like the story ran away. Boris Johnson is never going to join Reform. He's a former Prime Minister, a former Conservative Prime Minister. It's even absurd for people to suggest that. And I think people who are suggesting that just aren't using their heads and thinking that's never going to happen. But there's also the situation that Reform don't need Boris Johnson to join Reform. So they're doing terribly well on their own at the moment. Thank you very much. So Nigel is polling a solid 30% in the poll. And he isn't just doing that as a one-off. He's been doing that consistently. Now the big challenge for Reform is we're consolidating at 30%. How do we move that up to 35%? That's the next kind of like year's work, I think, that Reform have to undertake. And consolidate at 30. Now, how do we move further up? And you know, I mean, I'm not dismissing your point, but for anybody to say that Boris Johnson should join Reform don't want him to join Reform, and Boris Johnson doesn't want to join Reform. So it's people just aren't thinking. I think they're just asking those questions for media hits or clicks.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
and honestly, Mike, I'm here to look to the future. I'm not here to talk about the past.
Yeah.
You know, I left government 2 years ago now. I'm not here to talk about the part of the Conservative Party or the government of the past. I'll never criticise the Prime Minister that I served. I never criticised the cabinet that I served in. A lot happened between us leaving, Rishi Sunak taking over, Kemi Badenoch. A lot of water has gone under the bridge since. But I'm looking to the future, and I'm looking to a reform government, and that's where my attention and my focus is going to be.
And what do you think? So, I mean, Boris Johnson, a significant political figure in our recent history. Obviously, I'm not going to ask you that question, but what does he make of the rise of Reform? And do you think he welcomes it?
Look, Mike, I'm just not going to discuss Boris Johnson, and because I want to talk about Nigel Farage and Reform, and I think that's what we should be discussing, because now I'm a member of Reform.
Okay. All right, then. Are you going to be working on policy for them as well? Because there's a lot of gaps. A lot of people were asking me at the weekend as well. You know, there's not a policy document on absolutely everything, because there isn't, because there hasn't really necessarily been time. Will you be working on that kind of thing with them? What's your role going to be?
So Zia Youssef has been made head of policy, which is, you know, he's an incredibly impressive operator. He's been put in charge of policy, I think, over the next year. I would give him a year to have that pretty much sorted. But what I would say is, you know, we know the mood music of Reform. We know what they stand for. We can kind of almost guess the way those policies are going to go. Nigel has made a very good job over the summer of articulating already certain policies. such as how we deal with illegal immigration, law and order, he's been huge on. I think we're probably going to see more in policy on the way of the economy and some of the other issues. But, you know, give Zia a year, I would say. I'd say give him till this time next year in conference. And I think anybody will probably find it difficult to level the accusation that reform doesn't have policy or meat on its policy bones a year from now.
OK. Nadine, great to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. See you again soon. Have a lovely day. Nadine Dorries, former Tory minister, now reform. Doesn't want to talk about the past, doesn't want to talk about Boris Johnson, wants to talk about the future, and wants to understand that not all reform members want to see Tories flooding into the party, but some do, and some don't mind some Tories. I think it's as simple as that. We'll take your views on that as well. It's coming up to 9:28. Howard in Suffolk says, Mike, I think what Starmer meant to say was good morning, comrades, not good morning, colleagues, in that clip of the new cabinet. Probably true. Barry in North Yorkshire says, Wes Streeting showing support for Mandelson is not a good look for him. Let's not forget that only days ago he showed his support for Angela Rayner. Yeah, well, that is the problem, isn't it? He starts sticking up for these characters and then they go. Makes you look a bit daft. 9:28.
Breaking news this morning revealed that under the Terrorist Act, 242 people were arrested in the year to June of this year.
Something you can indulge in as to all the people who aren't going to prison because, well, there's no prison spaces.
So this is a Talk exclusive we've been looking at.
I said, you take these cuffs off me and speak to me like a human being rather than a common criminal.
You're just left wondering, do these people who lead us actually hate Britain? Yeah. Do they not love our country and everything that we've stood for?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 9:31, right here with you until 10 o'clock, of course, when Alex Phillips will be sitting in from 10 till 1, in for Julie Hartley-Brewer. This from Andy in Mansfield. We showed you earlier today a meeting yesterday in the Cabinet in Downing Street with the first meeting of the new Cabinet, where Keir Starmer proudly showed off the fact that he had a mug with his name on it. I said, what sort of person has a mug with their name on it? Well, Andy in Mansfield sent me a picture of his. He says, I'm drinking coffee with a mug with my name on it. It was bought for me by my son at Hershey Park about 25 years ago, and I treasure it. Well, that's all right, Andy. That's different, isn't it? Two-tier Kia reminds me of David Brent in The Office. Utterly cringeworthy, embarrassing, says Trevor in Norfolk. And talking of clothes pegs on the old school locker room, Mike, there would only be one name on all of the clothes pegs in the cabinet, says Kev. It would be Lord Alley. Yeah, because he would have provided all the clothing. Absolutely right. And Peter says, in Suffolk, I remember the Labour governments of the 60s and 70s well, and the parallels are obvious. My worry is I'm not sure we have a Maggie to save us this time. Well, maybe that's Nigel Farage. You never know. Let's have a look at what they're saying on the Sun Letters page.
Letters from the Sun, the page where you tell Britain what to think. For more, visit thesun.co.uk.
And today, the subject at hand seems to be Ed Miliband. Carol in Newcastle upon Tyne says, is Ed Miliband's obsession with net zero causing even Keir Starmer headaches? It would appear so, as Starmer supposedly offered him the position of Housing Secretary in his cabinet reshuffle. Alas, Miliband refused, meaning we're stuck with a green fanatic who actually uses a gas boiler to heat his constituency home. What a hypocritical plonker. Quite right. Alan in Chesterfield. Ed Miliband claimed £168.91 from the taxpayer to cover an energy bill. We have enough of our own costs to cover. No wonder Miliband isn't living in the same world as the rest of us if he and others don't pay their own way. And Adam says, from Gateshead, there is hypocrisy in politics, but Ed Miliband using a gas boiler to heat his home after ramming net zero down our throats takes the biscuit. How can anyone ever take net zero seriously from this man? Well, it's a very good point. I don't know how you do. But that's the Sun Letters page for today.
From the Sun, the page where you tell Britain what to think. For more, visit thesun.co.uk.
Let's get a voice note even from Joan.
Morning, Mike. Joan from Norfolk. So yet another member of Labour hits the scandal spotlight. Peter Mandelson and Jeffrey Epstein. This is awful. The standard of politicians and these so-called honourable members of Parliament is an absolute disgrace nowadays.
It really is awful, isn't it? I mean, what on earth is going on? How can anyone in their right mind think that this is the way to behave? Don't forget, he was in the Blair government when he first took up his friendship with the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. He went to his house, he spent time on his private island, he sent him sort of little notes and drew little drawings and said he was his best pal for decades. And now he's saying he was a horrible, ghastly, manipulator who told a load of lies. Well, he knew he was in prison when he went and stayed in his house. He knew why he was in prison. What sort of man comes out of prison and says, well, of course, I was innocent? Everyone's innocent in prison, don't you know that? 9:35.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 9:37. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock. I don't want to have Reform UK as a Tory party. Farage and Tyson need to stop this. This is somebody who doesn't give a name. And one here from Keith, who says, Mike, given the horrifying crimes we constantly hear about now, Sir Stalin has certainly fixed the foundations for lurking people. Very good. I see what you did there. And Mike, says John in Bakewell, did you see the video where police arrested a man for calling a woman a muppet as it hurt her feelings? I did see that. That was bizarre, wasn't it? Just very strange indeed. Anyway, let's talk to Julia Atherley now, Home Affairs correspondent at The Sun. She's got a great piece in the paper today, exclusive on page 17, about angry locals in Hull, where basically a former hotel which housed illegal migrants is being turned into a huge HMO. Now, a lot of people have said to me in the past, is this how the government is going to get around closing down migrant hotels and getting people out of them? They're just going to change the use of the actual building and make it an HMO, which means a house of multiple occupancy. This one would have 122 bedrooms. A bit more than a house, really. But Julia, very good morning to you.
Morning. Thanks for having me.
Great story, this. There is a fear, isn't there, that this is what the government is going to do in an awful lot of these migrant hotel situations. They could do it in Epping, for example, with the Bell Hotel. They could do it in lots of places where they literally just buy the property and turn it into a block of flats.
Well, in this case, it's not the government that bought the property. It's a private company which is converting it, and it is. I think we should say the Home Office have told us that them and their contractors in the region don't have any actual plans at the moment for this specific hotel. But what locals told us is that they're concerned that this hotel is going to be turned into a HMO. So it's going to be, it kind of looks like the pictures of what the company says it's going to look like. It kind of looks like student rooms, kind of small studios, and then also shared kitchens, shared laundry facilities. Right. And locals have told us that that will then enable it in the future. It could possibly then be turned into asylum accommodation.
Right, because that is the thing, isn't it? I mean, it's all very well saying, oh, we've got no plans to do that, and this might not happen yet, and the government might not be involved, but in the end, it all kind of moves in one particular direction, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I guess the issue that Labour are facing at the moment is that they have to close the hotels, they have to get people out of those hotels. And where do you put them? So they've hinted towards reopening military bases, disused military bases. That's really expensive to turn a old military base, and all the problems that come with it, into asylum accommodation. As they've seen, they scrapped the plan to convert RAF Scrampton, and because they said it wasn't value for money. That was one of the things they did when they came into government. Now they're looking again at it and saying that might also be an option. But yeah, so these HMOs, we've reported in the past about councils sending out letters, desperately asking landlords to have that accommodation as asylum accommodation. So yeah, I guess people are worried that people are going to be moved out of hotels and straight into these converted houses.
Yes, because one of the things that we talked about a couple of weeks ago was when it became clear that there's something like 180,000 migrants that have come illegally on small boats since around about 2019, 2020. There's only about 32,000 of them, I think, in my reckoning, who are actually still in hotels. So all the others are presumably in HMOs up and down the country.
Yeah, I think it's something like 66,000 that are already in different accommodation, whether that's converted flats or other accommodation. So actually the proportion of people that are in hotels at the moment is lower than people who are already in this sort of accommodation.
Right. And as far as the planning permission for this particular one, the Portland Hotel, there's an application has gone through, but it's been deferred until next month because some people have asked questions about crime issues.
Yes, so this planning permission has been delayed, and actually it was the police have raised the issue that if people live in these cramped conditions, and they live kind of on top of one another in places like this, and the police have said they do see crime rates go up. So that's the police saying that. That's not just concerned locals.
Right. Because we saw another story this morning in the Telegraph where 200 different migrants are actually suing the government because of the conditions that they were forced to endure in Mandelson, which is like the holding detention centre, if you like, or processing centre, I think they call it, down in Kent. So when they first get taken off the boats in Dover, that's where they go. So I guess the other problem here for the government is if that catches on, suddenly they'll all be suing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you remember it was 2022, and it was when Suella Braverman was our Home Secretary. There was outbreaks of diphtheria, there was scabies at Mandelson, there were people sleeping in tents. A man died after contracting diphtheria there as well. And so when people are processed through Mandelson, which is where all small boat migrants are taken when they first arrive in the country, when they're first picked up, they're legally only supposed to be there for 24 hours. And we know that actually on quiet days, people can get through in about 3 hours. That's why they have their initial asylum interviews. It's where they say, hi, I want to claim asylum. And then they get bussed off and they get taken into hotel accommodation. What was happening at Mandelson, people were staying there for months. And they were sleeping in tents and things like that. So, and there's a government inquiry ongoing, which started in February, into what happened in Mandelson in 2022. But yeah, as in our paper today as well, they could be in line for millions in compensation because what happened there.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? Incredible stuff. Also, got a bit of breaking news for you. French have said that 3 migrants have died and others are missing, according to French authorities, after trying to cross the Channel. Migrant attempts last night off the coast of the Pas de Calais. So we had 1 death yesterday, another possible 3, if not a larger number today. It's not been a great first week, really, has it, for Shabana Mahmood?
No, and especially, I mean, what was really shocking from the deaths today is that they think that they were crushing injuries. So this is kind of an overloaded boat, and actually 2 of them might also be children as well. We've heard this morning. So because I guess you would think it would be the safer thing to do to put women and children in the centre of a boat, but when they're so flimsy, people are actually getting crushed in the middle, and that's only happened in the last couple of years. People aren't, a lot of these deaths in the Channel, they're not people drowning, they're people being crushed because people are shoving so many people onto these boats. But as you say, so Shabana Mahmood only became Home Secretary on Friday, and then on Saturday we had 1,000 people cross the Channel on small boats, so a bit of a baptism of fire for her. And then, as you say, we had someone die in the Channel yesterday, a woman, and these 3 deaths and 3 missing today. There was also a strange report yesterday that there was a boat which had landed in an uncontrolled landing in Kent, which your listeners might have seen. So essentially, the Border Force and the police were called, and they found people on the beach in Kent, and 6 people were then taken by Border Force, 5 people, sorry. And at the moment, we don't know whether they could have actually been trying to leave the UK and smuggle themselves out, or they could have arrived, which would be quite extraordinary given the amount of tech and money that the UK government spends patrolling the Channel, and all the radar and all of the drones, for example. For someone to have got through that on a very busy day on Saturday when it was say more than 1,000 people arrived would be pretty extraordinary.
And this is the thing, I mean, they say it's the first one in 3 years, but they may not know that there are others that arrive just without them knowing. I mean, I've certainly spoken to people, because I'm down there quite a lot, who have seen boats landing in all kinds of places, all the way along, from Dungeness all the way along to sort of Camber, and it's all very flat, and you can put a boat in there anywhere, and people just jump out of it and run into the local town.
Yeah, as you say, this is the first one in 3 years, if it does turn out to be a boat which has arrived from France. The first one in 3 years that we know about. And as you say, it's such a vast stretch of coastline, and we don't have people patrolling it. There aren't police out there every morning, for example. So, we just wouldn't know.
No, absolutely. A great story, Julia. Anyway, thank you very much indeed. Julia Athley there, Home Affairs correspondent with The Sun, on a story from Hull, where a former hotel, the Portland Hotel, a 4-star attraction when it opened in the 1960s, is currently sitting empty, but there's an application going in from a private company to turn it into the largest multiple occupancy house in the UK, with 122 bedrooms. It hasn't actually happened yet, but again, something that we warned that would happen, because there's no room for every single migrant in a hotel currently to be put into a house in Britain. So they'll have to do something like this as a kind of a way around it, whereby they keep them in hotels. They just change the name of the hotel, they change the nature of the business, and they make it impossible for anybody else to obviously use that property. What an absolute shambles it all is. Let's talk to Catherine, who is in Oxfordshire. Hello, Catherine.
Oh, hi, Mike. Thanks for having me on. I've been desperate to get on your programme. Talking about the calibre of the MPs.
Yes.
We're farmers, and I know you've had the NFU chairman on there today, and we're absolutely boiling over. And I because I've had an operation lately, I was watching a bit of PMQs, and I looked and I saw Darren Jones, that James Murray, and that Rachel Reeves, and that other guy who's there. And they were trying to answer questions. Well, they weren't answering the questions. And I thought, what are these left-leaning Resolution Foundation people going to take from us next? They can't, they didn't answer any questions that the MPs have given them about farmers. They haven't got a clue. And this levy on all our agriculture and business property as part of our, they're just trying to get rid of us. And then you showed that about Starmer on at the NFU conference in 2023. Once they're gone, they're gone. Well, we will be,
I know, but they're such hypocrites, though. They say these things, and then literally, the next time they're talking about it, they're saying the complete opposite.
But the point is, they don't know what work is. And, we're three generations. When Rachel Reeves cried in Parliament a few weeks, I thought, yes, that's how we all felt. I actually did, because my father-in-law came here with nothing and built our farm, and we've got sons, and they've got other jobs they have to do as well as the farm, and it's criminal. They really are. They've got to listen to us, and they can't even be bothered. They've got no respect to even come and visit a farm and visit the countryside. They have no respect.
Well, the last time Keir Starmer went anywhere near a farm, there was a tractor protest, I seem to remember, and he scurried back into his Range Rover and headed back to London.
Yeah, I mean, they really haven't got a clue, and it's like, you were talking about Miliband, that is rural vandalism on an enormous scale.
Yeah.
For what? Watch out, everybody.
Yeah.
The farmers are going to be there, and lots of other people who actually work for a living. None of these people have ever worked for a living.
No.
We've all paid their way for them. Anyway,
they've always
rant over. Thank you for listening to me.
Great to hear from you, Catherine. Thank you. Do call again. Catherine, a very sensible woman there, farmer, with some really good things to say about how hopeless and out of touch these politicians are. Let's get a voice note from Chris.
Good morning, Mike. Chris from Barnsley. Great show as always. I don't know how this Labour government are on to their third phase already. I'm still blow drying the walls at home, trying to get the damp out. They move quick, don't they, these politicians? Anyway, Mike, all the best. Have a great show.
Yeah, keep blow drying the wall. Yeah, we've all done it, says Starmer. I bet you haven't. How about this from Fionn in Welshpool? Morning, Mike. Just a postie delivering leaflets to us telling us all how to prepare for power cuts. Brilliant. Have a word with Jürgen, I think, up at GB Energy. He'll sort you out. This is Talk.
thought it was fantastic. I thought it felt like what Tory conference used to be like before it was taken over by just lobbyists. And I always think the most important thing with these places, if you go around and you talk to the people there and you get a read of who the average person there is. At the Labour Party, it's someone called Keir, someone in a suit, or a trade unionist. At the Conservative Party, well, it's not many people anymore. It's who remains of the MPs. And again, people in seats, lobbyists. With Reform, it was party members.
Some breaking news this morning revealed that under the Terrorist Act, 242 people.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 9:53. I'm Mike Graham with you just before 10 o'clock. Alex Phillips will be along to tell us what's coming up on her show. Morning, Mike, says Ian in Cheshire. On Mandelson, my old mum had a saying, for an intelligent man, he's awfully thick. Interesting. Deborah in Bristol says Andrew was forced to step down and stripped of privileges by the late Queen over the Epstein affair, and quite rightly so. Surely Mandelson should be treated with no less severity and be removed from office and stripped of his knighthood. He is disgraced to king and country. Hard to argue with that, I think, Deborah. Andrew has basically found himself isolated and exiled from public life. Mandelson, I would have thought, should probably do the same. Angela Levin's here, though, royal biographer. Angela, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
So, I mean, we won't talk about Peter Mandelson and Jeffrey Epstein, but hard to imagine what Andrew must be thinking reading the papers this morning. But what about Harry? Apparently he's given £1.1 million of his own money to children in need. I didn't think he had that sort of money to throw around.
Well, I mean, my reaction to that was, then why is he shouting at his father that's what he wants? I mean, his main aims for quite a long time, when he's got there, is to shout and get money. And now one of his demands is that he wants his father to pay himself for the protection of all his family 24/7. So where's his money? You know, it's a nonsense. He seems to be broke, but it is absolutely appalling.
Well, did he not say that he was, in that interview with Oprah Winfrey, he'd been cut off by his family?
Yeah, well, that's a long time ago, isn't it? And that was a lying thing, because the King gave him £3 million to get going. Yeah. And he just evaporated or didn't.
Well, he also got a load of money from his mother, didn't he?
He had masses of money, but I mean, if you've got a wife like Meghan who spends thousands of pounds on a dress, and you've got a house that's much too big for you, 16 bathrooms, you know, money disappears. What I am really, really annoyed about, if I can say this, is Harry went to the community recording studio in Nottingham. I went there with him when I was writing the biography. It's a place for teenagers who actually nobody wants. They've been out of school, they're out of prison, you know, they are really tough lot. And he went there with me. I went there first. It was quite scary. I asked them what they felt, that they couldn't get lost, but in vulgar terms. And Harry came in and was very good with them. But it was very hard because they were very difficult people. But once he got married to Meghan, nothing happened. And I know because the guy who runs it rang me. He was so desperate. There was no money there. He has lost his interest in them. And now suddenly he goes back today. He obviously thought there were going to be hundreds of people saying, hooray, you're back. But there wasn't. There was hardly anything except people with cameras. Yeah. And I just thought, what a terrible way to think that he now wants to sort of outbeat William.
Yeah.
So if he goes to all these places, he can go there and he can sort of make a big fuss. There's nobody there trying
He got
to
out
get
of the car there and there's literally no crowd.
Yeah, no child. But actually, if you stop having any communication with someone for 6 years, you can't expect them to fall over and actually think you're absolutely wonderful. I mean, here he is doing all this cuddle and hug stuff. It's all phony, isn't it? He wants to actually show that he's better than William. He's much more wanted than William. But it's not true. It's very childish, very spiteful, and it's the same thing as Meghan trying to pull down Catherine.
Yeah.
He's doing this with William. It's disgraceful.
And those two guys that get out of the Range Rover with him are obviously his bodyguards. Are they provided by the UK state, or are they private, or what?
I think those were private, because I don't think he got them this time.
Right.
But I think they were private. But maybe, he rang a friend and said, "Can you get it for me?"
Because he's later pictured in the Sun Online piece, sort of having his picture taken with loads of people from, there's a bit of a crowd on the other side where he didn't get out. And again, this is a guy who says it's too dangerous here, but he's wandering about with a crowd.
Yes, well, he went to a place called St Anne's in Nottingham, which is very dangerous. It's absolutely scary. And suddenly it doesn't matter. When he goes there, some places, he can go himself, as we saw when he walked up and down the road trying to speak to a friend and couldn't find them. There was no protection there. So the protection is wanted to actually use whenever they wanted to around the country and have a lovely time, sort of just have a holidays and see people that they want to do. It's not